All right. Welcome back,
Hello.
y'all.
Hello. Welcome to Recapping with Delora.
And Ashley, episode 3, guys.
Episode 3.
Cannot believe we're on lucky number 3. Is it lucky number 3 or is it only lucky number 7?
I only thought it was 7.
I made that up.
But if you want it to be 3 today, it can be 3.
It's the drinks. I'm already almost done with my first drink. Blame it on the alcohol. Okay.
Yes.
So, we're going to do our usual. We're going to hit you guys with our selected hot topics for the day. We're going to be led by Miss Delora in a recap of Enola Holmes.
Yes.
And we're going to shoot you with our hidden gems recommendations. So let's go ahead and get into these hot topics of the week, girl.
Let's.
So the first one that I have down is Jeannie Mai. So Miss Jeannie Mai has gotten a bit of backlash because she basically a little bit of hot water. And Jeannie Mai, for anybody who is not familiar, is one of the co-hosts on The Real and is also on our current season of Dancing with the Stars, which, by the way, I want to do a whole tangent on after we do this story.
Yes.
We have not gotten to talk about it. But she basically said, Laura, that she wants to be submissive in her marriage to Jeezy. So, they got engaged a little earlier this year. I guess it was a segment on The Real where she basically said, when I come home, this is a direct quote, when I come home, I like the idea that my man leads us. She also said that by giving the power to have someone lead in your life is power in itself, the power to relinquish control. You willingly submit, not forcibly submit. She kind of mentioned that she felt like, based on her experience with her first marriage, because she has been married before, and also her parents' marriage, this is something she feels like she wanted to do in her current relationship and in her marriage. So what were your thoughts on this story?
That's cute. Girl, I guess. I don't appreciate the word submissive.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've seen online with all the chatter, it was like the best tweet ever. They were like, she wasn't saying all this with her first husband, the white one. What 5%er rhetoric does Jeezy have her reading? I'm joking.
I mean, again, it's first of all, that's cute. Y'all don't know, that is such shade from Delora. So I just looked up submissive. So submissive means
come through Webster.
Yes, inclined or ready to submit or yield to authority of another, unresistingly or humbly obedient, marked by or indicating submission or a yielding to the authority of another, which is basically the same as the first definition. So I agree with you. I think that it's the wording that people feel probably the strongest reaction.
It's triggering. It's trigger warning.
Submissive is the word we want to use. So I don't want to cut you off. Did you have any other first thoughts?
I do.
Mine? Go ahead, girl. Go ahead.
So I also feel like, I think most women in relationships, I shouldn't even say most women. I think being submissive to one's husband is fine when he actually has a plan, when he actually, has respect for you and your opinions. I just think when it comes to the relationship dynamic, especially male-female dynamic, because that's what I know. I just have an issue with the assumption that the man has on the woman to be submissive when he hasn't earned it. So just because you have a penis does not mean that I need to be submissive to you. Now I have to respect you, respect your vision for this household. And I need for you to respect me as well. And then we can have a conversation on what to do to move forward. Those are my thoughts. What do you think, Ashley?
Oh, so I had to sit with this story.
And we've had this same conversation multiple times throughout our friendship. Okay.
We have. Which, by the way, let's just pause for a minute. We have not at this point, and I will give you my thoughts. We have not at this point explained our relationship. So
yes,
me and Delora have been friends now for quite some time.
Like we have years under the belt.
We do. So
what, 2014?
That sounds about accurate.
That's 6 years.
Yeah, I was about to say. So we started out getting to know each other because we were both pursuing our master's degrees at the same time.
Yes.
And we bonded so heavily and immediately on pop culture.
Yes.
This was the thing that I remember when we first, and not that we don't still do this, but we used to have such rapid fire conversations. Like, I cannot imagine a third person ever getting a word in when we first started getting to know each other. It was like back and forth, like, yes, girl, this, yes, this. And I say this all the time. I still feel like you are, as much as I get into it, I still feel like you beat me to the punch 9 times out of 10 with like breaking news and information.
And that cracks me up.
You are the only person that I defer to, and I will say, listen, as much as I'm the pop culture queen and I love it, my friend Delora, though, y'all just don't know. My girl Delora, but I think it's just, again, it's such a shared passion between us that I think we both just felt like we want to let the world in on these conversations that we would have anyway. Like, we have had 3 hour, and that's putting it mildly, that we could keep going. We have had 3 hour Zooms throughout COVID, guys, with one of our other friends, Shamika. Shout out to Shamika.
Love you, girl.
And it just doesn't stop. So did you have anything to add to our journey together?
I have always been a huge fan of pop culture, and for most of my life, I was the only one that knew as much as I knew. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
like the Rolodex of references, right? And honestly, you are literally my only friend that can keep up with everything. And I'm so appreciative of that, because, you know, it's fun. It matters. I feel like people throw away pop culture, but pop culture tells us a lot about what society's going through at the time.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
For example, because our outside world is so intense, we have a show of celebrities dressed up in costumes anonymously. If you had told me about this show like 10 years ago, I would have said you're psycho. Like, who?
And it's a hit.
It is a hit. Okay, I watch it myself. So So I'm glad you're my friend, Ashley.
Me too, girl. And I was thinking about this week too, that I feel like the essence of my pop culture love comes from my mom. Shout out, Mom. I know you listen to every episode. Shout out to both of our moms. Mom, you are the person who has called me after every episode and told me your thoughts and watched these shows. And I just love you to death. Thank you so much for your undying support. And I feel like
you, Ashley, Mom.
Yes, and Delora's mama as well. We appreciate y'all.
Helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, so I feel like it's just such a great bonding point. And to your point again about it being important, like, people get so into sports. People can break down sports stats. Like, we just can do that with pop culture and movies and TV.
And why it matters.
Exactly. And I also feel like pop culture is so relevant too, because it's such an indicator of life and like your generation that you grew up with. Like sometimes if somebody doesn't really get into pop culture, I'm like, how do you not have any cultural references? I don't understand you. Like, I don't know what to talk to you about. You know what I mean?
Very true.
So I feel you, and thank you for that. I didn't mean to get us off on a tangent again. I just felt like we had not shared that yet. So I wanted to take that minute. But back to Jeannie and back to this whole submissive situation with Jeezy. So again, I had to sit with this because as a woman, I definitely feel some type of way when I hear the whole submissive. And I think with Jeannie's case, what I appreciated is that she never said, which we have talked about. Some women will say, this is the way you're supposed to be. This is how it's supposed to be. She's
making the decision. She has the option.
And she's saying, listen, this was what works for me. I'm not saying this is what works for everybody, because I think everybody has the right to decide what works within the confines of their relationship. What I love is that we're at a point with rights and with, women and the things that we have the ability to do, that's a choice she has the ability to make for herself.
Absolutely.
Back in the day, that was not a choice. You did not decide how your household was run. That was society instigated that for you, which we will get into with our recap of Enola Holmes.
Yes, R.I.P. RBG.
I mean,
and I bring her up only because a woman could not sign for her own credit card, a mortgage, any of those things.
Which is just crazy
for her. So I don't mean to get political, but I think it's relevant in this moment in terms of, strides for women independence.
And I think people from either party should be able to absolutely understand that and appreciate that and her contributions to society as a whole. But, I think with Jeannie, the older I get, the less interested I am in really having strong opinions about how other people should live their lives. I'll say that. Yeah. But I think I get why there was such backlash, because again, she has a public platform. But however Jeannie and Jeezy choose to live their lives and whatever, I wish them nothing but the best. I can't say that I feel like submission is necessarily going to solve whatever problem she may feel like she had in her previous marriage. But again, I wish them the best. I
only pray
divorce rate in this country.
I only pray that she was not manipulated to having this quote unquote option.
For sure. And again, we don't know, because we are just looking from the outside in at what she's putting out there into the world. One would hope. She's saying she's 41. She's saying her experiences have pushed her to this decision.
And that's a grown woman for you. She's been single. She's been married. She's been single again. And so if this is what, everyone's relationship dynamics
are different.
They are very different.
Yeah. I think
that's why I don't think there's a such thing as like relationship goals, because you don't know what goes on.
No, the inner workings of people's relationships. No, and people talk such a good game. They say one thing and they're living a whole different life behind the scenes, right? Which we've seen come to light many times.
Many times. It always comes to light, though.
Again, whatever works for them. I guess I'd just be curious when it comes to the whole submission thing. To what extent, how does that work? What does that mean? What decisions do you feel like your partner needs to make that you guys are not making together?
Exactly, because that's the deal. Like in my relationship, I guess for me, what's important for me is that you hear what I have to say and you respect my opinion.
Yeah.
To railroad over that, to me, I would find extremely offensive, just because you're the quote unquote man of the house. But I think there's something attractive for a man who knows what he wants and wants to move forward with it, right? Mm-hmm. I can respect that. But again, I don't know what the dynamics of the relationships are, but for me, I need to feel respected and heard in a relationship.
Absolutely. And we're both grown adults. I'm just,
again,
curious.
I didn't get here by myself. I got here. I am a whole person and you are a whole person. And together we're making this life together.
I think you just hit the nail on the head for me in terms of the way that I always feel about women and our abilities, because I think I've said this to people. If I were meant to be inferior, God should have made me dumber, because my intellect, my ability to make decisions is not diminished once I get into a relationship with a man. You know what I mean? Like, that part of me does not die. So where is that supposed to go? And again, I'm just curious as to where the leading and following is supposed to come from. Does that mean that, you know, oh, wherever we go on vacation, he decides, our finances, he decides, when it comes to where we are going to live, he decides? Like, I'm just curious. So I would be curious if anybody has any feedback on that for me, let me know.
I'm not trying to be shady, but I'm not going to go the shady route. I'm going to go the mature wise route. I feel like in a relationship, you have your strengths and weaknesses, and your partner has their strengths and weaknesses.
Absolutely.
Therefore, you all mesh together in that way. But again, the assumption or me feeling forced to do something because you said so, you're not my father. I'm sorry.
Ooh, when I tell you, that just like shot something through my stomach. Like, again, I think because when it comes to dynamics of marriage too, most of the examples I have seen has been women being a little bit less than in terms of the dynamics.
Shrinking themselves.
Exactly. So when I say less than,
your partner
exactly.
should be the wind beneath your wings. Today, getting ready for this podcast, guess what my husband did? He came home from work and he set up my microphone and fixed my audio. He's such an excellent support system. Like, he is literally the wind beneath my wings. He does not.
Why shouldn't that be mutual?
Less, and you know, and I support him in the ways that I do. You know,
because that should be mutual. There should be. Exactly. Why is it that women are just? And I say this too because, again, when I talk about women being less, I mean the idea that, like, women being barefoot and pregnant and taking care of the kids and all that is still the place that women are expected to be in the household. Again,
and it should not be.
Our abilities and one of the things that, being a woman, the older I get, that has bothered me so excessively is the fact that at one point in time, and continues to be the case in certain situations, is the idea that we are, or ever have been, by any means less than capable of doing everything that a man can do when it comes to mental ability. I'm not talking about physical. As people want to get into the physical and talk about, well, you know, you still want a man to do these things. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about my intellect, my ability to make decisions, my ability to perform at work, to head a boardroom, to do all those things.
To be a leader.
Why was that ability of mine ever negated because it was a direct threat to manliness? Like, I can't wrap my head around it. It bothers me.
Are extremely fragile.
It just bothers me.
Sets up my microphone not because I'm not intelligent and I can't do it on my own, but he does it because he knows it helps me, and he does it a lot faster.
Yeah. Again, if he can do technology, great. Okay, awesome. That's, again, I would seek that balance, I guess, is what we come down to. Is I hope that everybody seeks that balance, whatever that means for you in your life and in your marriage. And again, if a woman decides to submit, do you, boo. This is 2020. I hope women get to do whatever they so choose. That's no knock on Jeannie or any other woman who makes that decision. But I will say society does
not make it easy for a woman to be everything she wants to be. And I
Absolutely.
say that having gone through the process of having a career and trying to juggle baby, you know what I mean?
Yes.
We don't have the necessary mechanisms for a woman to be successful, like affordable childcare, like, you know, flexibilities at work when it comes to, you know, leaving at particular times or adjusting your schedule. Now, I think things have changed courtesy of COVID. So thank you, COVID. But that was a big eye opener. You know what I mean? Like, I was blessed to be taught you could be whatever you want to be. You could do whatever you could do. And then I remember this quote. I think Oprah even said this. She's like, you can have it all, just not all at the same time.
I have heard that as well.
So
I have heard that as well.
You make adult decisions and you do what you have to do, but much luck. I look forward to her wedding. I know her dress is going to be bomb. So, you know.
She's gorgeous. She's a gorgeous woman. So can we... Exactly. Do you, boo-boo? Can we pivot over to Dancing with the Stars real quick?
Sure.
So we have not gotten to talk about this, and we talked about it obviously off mic, but not on mic. So for anybody who has not been watching Dancing with the Stars, this season has been a bit of a shift, obviously, with COVID. Tyra Banks took over as host. There's no live audience, all of that. But there were some great celebrities that were chosen to be on this season. You told me that you were an OG. You've been with the series since day numero uno.
Season 1.
I just got into this season. I started watching it for work purposes, but I have fallen so in love with Dancing with the Stars.
Good. It's so good.
It's so entertaining.
I will say, I'm still forming my opinion of Tyra.
So I was going to ask you, how does this measure up to previous seasons?
I'm still forming my opinion. I feel like I'm still off. It's off-putting to have the sound guy press clap hands and boo to the judges. Like,
wait, you telling me that isn't the booing from the other contestants? You telling me they got a track for that, Delora? I'm being so sarcastic.
I was gonna say those are sounds from happier times. Okay,
like they did with the Emmys this year, where they had. I think I texted you like, why they got the cut ups from the audience from previous years on here?
Previous years,
hilarious.
And the coaches, the judges are the same. Obviously, Lennon's in there, but Derek Huff is there, and he is a fantastic professional dancer who actually got his start in fame because of all the wins he's had on Dancing with the Stars.
Which you had to tell me about. I mean, I actually know Julianne better than I know Derek's career.
Yeah,
his sister, but.
Yeah, and it's fine. It's fine. I think out of the celebrities, my favorites are Sky and Neve.
Yes. Oh my God, we're on the exact same page though. That's scary.
He's so unexpected. I had no expectation. I guess I should say that. But he has been a pleasant surprise.
Every single week. I'm like, give this man a 30. Like, my
other favorite is Johnny Weir. Love him.
Well, okay. So again, being my first and only season of Dancing with Stars, I came in with no expectations.
Yes.
I think Sky, because of week 1 and because she's this adorable little black girl, and I root for everybody black, she came in. Go ahead, girl.
I was going to say, thank you, Issa.
Yes, I'm rooting for everybody black. She came in and stole my heart, but I will say absolutely Neve every single week. And I love Catfish. I've watched Catfish for years. I had no idea he was going to be so graceful. I mean, every single week. And him and his partner have the best chemistry in terms of like their compatibility and partnership. Besides Johnny, I think him and his partner dance so beautifully. When he did Pirates of the Caribbean, Disney Week, I was like, I am just blown away.
His musicality is amazing.
Yes.
And
so
I assumed that he didn't have any rhythm. That was my assumption.
Because look at Jesse Metcalfe. Look at Jesse Metcalfe, who was eliminated. I will say that when he talked about the fact that he started dancing, he was a kid this past week. It made so much sense to me. Then I was like, oh, okay, so you do have some level of experiences. I'm like, Neve, this did not just come out the blue. You are so beautiful when you dance. Like and it's something that you rarely see in men, because a lot of men aren't necessarily graceful. There's such a grace to the way that he dances, to the way his body moves.
He's absolutely a natural. And it's surprising because I had every expectation that AJ was going to be my favorite, and he's not.
Oh, I love me some AJ, though. Okay, Backstreet Boys, AJ.
Backstreet Boys. Wait. When I see him, I automatically think, show me the meaning of being lonely.
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
so you lived for the episode where they had the Backstreet Boys guys in the back.
Oh, absolutely. Dance. Peak 2000, early 2000s. Okay.
Vibes. Johnny, to your point about Johnny, I think as everyone else did, I had high expectations for Johnny because
and
he
his
is
partner's
this
black, the first black female professional dancer.
And I love seeing her dance too. I think they are also my second favorite pairing.
She's lovely.
But I had such high expectations for him because he is this Olympic figure skater who is used to moving his body in certain ways that I anticipated he was going to be great. But sometimes I think that's to his detriment. Sometimes I think it's to his detriment because everybody does have such high expectations to him that his critique, like this past week, I said, give them a 30. That was breathtaking.
It was
breathtaking.
Yes, it was gorgeous. I literally, I got not emotional, but I was like, this was good. Like,
no, there have been moments absolutely where I've gotten emotional. First of all, when Sky was talking about,
Cameron.
Yes, that was so.
He died on my birthday, and I didn't know that. I was a fan of him. I was watching Descendants before I even had a child. Okay, like I'm a
remember
sucker
seeing
for
him
Disney.
As a kid. Like in my mind, he was still a kid, so it just broke my heart. I'm like, this kid died.
See, I didn't know him from the shows, but I'm always a sucker for a Disney original movie. Okay, and so
Halloween Town.
When I heard about Descendants, it was good music, good choreography. It was a lot of fun. Saw the first and second, and by the time the third one came out, he had passed. So tragic. But she did such a beautiful job. But who else is kicking butt? Oh, my lady from the remake from the Netflix show One Day at a Time.
Oh yeah, Justina is amazing. Her energy. When they had her do the salsa, I said, come on, Justina.
She was like, this is what I was made for. Thank
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, she has great energy.
Very impressive week by week.
I also think Caitlin Bristow is another one who just visually, I so enjoy watching her dance. But
I really don't like her.
I feel like she's another one who naturally it just fits for me. But then
she's
again,
a dancer.
Exactly. So again, she talks about the fact that she had the experience already, and her partner is Artem, and you know that I love Artem because of the Bella twins and because of him having the baby with Nikki. I root for Artem more than any other pro.
Cena got married to that old girl randomly.
Who
Cena
did?
got married.
Yeah. So sorry guys, we're gonna wrap this up. I know we're going off on our pop culture tangents, but I did send that article to one of my friends yesterday, and I was like, if he has a baby, I'm done. Anyway,
but they were so awkward together. What had to happen happened. Okay. So
what Dolores is talking about, for anybody who does not know what she's talking about, is Nikki Bella, and John Cena, who are both WWE wrestlers. I'm sure most people know who John Cena is.
Wrestling royalty at the time.
Yes, they got engaged, but for years Nikki was with John. He talked about he didn't want to get married because he had been previously married. He didn't want to have any kids. So, as a woman, sometimes you feel like
wait. I'm going to tie this in for you. He's extremely controlling, and I'm sure he wants a submissive wife.
Just for me, what bothered me is I felt like he wasted Nikki's time, or Nikki wasted her own time, because it's not like she was forced to stay in that relationship.
She kept trying to change a man.
Yeah.
Which is problem number one.
But it's just one of those cases where it's like, you're with that person, you want these things from them. Then as soon as you get out of a relationship, you get with the next one. Oh, now you want to be married? Now you want to have a baby? You son of a... Anyway. We can wrap this up. We can wrap this up. We've been on this for a minute. So sorry. But this, again, guys, this is how into pop culture we can get.
Our conversation.
Yeah. So the point is, Dancing with the Stars this season, and Dancing with the Stars in general, I think I even told my mom, like, it's such feel-good TV for me. I'm enjoying it so much. I encourage everybody, if you've never considered watching Dancing with the Stars, like, just get into it. I love watching, if you love watching people dance, if you just want to see something that's just like entertaining, but not, too heavy, give Dancing with the Stars a watch. It's a great season. Nelly's still hanging on strong. Shout out to Nelly every week getting his dance shoes customized. Going back to Sneakerheads last week, this man got a whole guy who customizes his dance shoes to look like sneakers.
Give me two purse.
Still love Nelly. That man is 45 and looking fine.
Amazing. I'm so sorry. I'm going to say this. Ashanti just turned 40 and she looks banging.
Girl, I did not realize Ashanti was 40. I saw that news alert. I was like, are you kidding me? We are getting old, but I'm glad that all the Black people out here, y'all holding it together. Ooh, all these Black celebrities. Chris Rock, come on, baby, that body. Quit playing. Quit playing, Chris.
Expected that in a trillion years, okay?
Quit playing, Chris. Quit playing with them abs. I ain't never been, we talked about this. I ain't never been attracted to Chris Rock in my life.
Never.
And I said, sir, if I go back, because we'll talk about this, if I come back to Ohio and I see him in Yellow Springs, anyway. So let's move on. Let's move on to our second hot topic. It's Dave Chappelle, guys. Dave Chappelle lives in Yellow Springs. So Gal Gadot, who everyone should know from Wonder Woman fame, is set to star in a remake of Cleopatra. This Delora is dividing the internet. This is the story I have up from the article I'm looking at. So basically, the division is in the fact that there's the idea that Cleopatra should be played by a woman of color, and particularly a Black woman, because we're talking about Egypt.
The Queen of Egypt.
In previous incarnations, it's been a white woman. You know, it's been Elizabeth Taylor. And while Gal Gadot is Israeli, it's still just the idea that why at this point in time, given everything we're going through, why was a Black woman,
representation
woman of color,
matters,
not given this opportunity? So again, you have the criticism, but then you also have people who are saying, well, Cleopatra was not Black, she was of Greek ancestry, and that's on her father's or her mother's side. I think maybe her father's unknown, one or the other, as far as her parentage goes, and just the idea that she wasn't Black, maybe she looked more Middle Eastern, maybe this or that. But what were your thoughts when you read the story? Did you feel like this should have been a time where a Black actress or woman of color should have been given this opportunity? And again, this is going to be in collaboration with Patty Jenkins, who she already does
director of
Wonder Woman with. So it's a female empowerment. Let me find her statement.
And Martin Scorsese.
Or Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan, because they do fantastic collaborations as well. Let me find her quote real quick though, because I did want to read that. She said, "As you might have heard, I teamed up with Patty Jenkins to bring the story of Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, to the big screen in a way she's never been seen before, to tell her story for the first time through women's eyes, both behind and in front of the camera." So basically, the idea that women should be able to do these projects and bring them to life, great. But we still have racial diversity to discuss. So give me your thoughts, girl.
My thoughts are, I don't know if she should play the role based off of religious factors more than color, because Cleopatra was Greek. She was born in Egypt, but her father took over. He was part of Alexander the Great empire when they were, taken over during that time. And her dad was, he ruled over Egypt. So was she a woman of color? She was a Greek woman. Was she beautiful? Technically, no. And Gal Gadot probably looked better than what she probably looked like.
I read that it was more so her charm, and the fact
she was extremely intelligent and
spoke multiple languages,
extremely
seductive.
Cunning. Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of a woman of great strategy and intelligence, Cleopatra, like we were talking about earlier, I think most of the issue is the fact that Gal Gadot is Israeli and Egypt is a Muslim state, and so I know a lot of people of Islam faith is not excited about that because of the issues that they have over between Israel and Palestine. So that's my biggest issue, would probably be the religious divide, but I don't know enough about that to speak to it. But her playing Cleopatra, I mean, at this rate, Cleopatra wasn't that cute and she wasn't Black. So
you didn't feel, you was just like, okay, well, y'all go ahead and do y'all. We'll see what happens.
I mean, she looked great. And, like every empire, those people took on the customs of the area that they took over. And so they, you know, they adorned her with their traditions and their headdress and everything like that. And that'll probably be fun to see. But I don't have a strong opinion about it. How about you?
Okay. This was a story. One of the reasons why I wanted to do it as a hot topic was because I sent it to one of my friends who was a big Gal Gadot fan, like big, and was like, oh, you know, I love her, but I don't think this is it. So I was like, oh, wow. So if even her biggest fans might feel torn about this decision, then, you know, to me, it's worth a chat. And I guess in the realm of Hollywood and casting and decisions, Hollywood does stuff that is unconventional and makes no sense all the time. So in this case, in 2020, why not? If I don't give, you know, I know sometimes I'll be cussing on here and I've tried not to. I don't give two shits in my honest opinion, whether or not Cleopatra was Greek or of any other ancestry. When you think of Cleopatra, you think of an African queen. So go ahead and cast a Black woman in that role and allow that story to be told through a different lens than we've ever seen it be told. Because in my opinion, this isn't going to be some earth-shattering blockbuster of a film. It's not going to be something that's going to get people to come out and really want to see it. You're not giving me anything I haven't seen before. So I think that was my main thing, especially when you talk about Hollywood, you talk about new releases. It doesn't excite me.
Yeah. I'm reminded of was it the Gods of Egypt? They didn't even try. The only Black god that they had was Chadwick Boseman, and I'm like, at least with the gods, you could have them reflect the people, that, you know, the Egyptian people of color, in that they used Australian, British people, like everybody, and I'm like, if that, you know, but when it comes to Cleopatra, she was Greek. I don't know what to say. I mean, I do respect people who want to see a person of color, but, you know, I'm open. I love a good period piece. So
yeah, again, I just feel like go ahead and let a actress of color have that role. But to your point, was this upsetting to me? No, because it's like, y'all go ahead and do y'all movie and we can go ahead and do another Cleopatra in the future if we want that diversity. Let's go ahead and get a Black director in there. Let's go ahead and make this story our own, because that's generally what has to happen for us to get those opportunities. So, you know, if y'all want to see a Black Cleopatra, then go ahead and shout out to your favorite Black director. Ava, let's go ahead and do a Black Cleopatra, baby, and let's make this shit happen. Period. Point blank. All right, moving on to our next hot topic. We have not talked about this on the pod, and God forgive us if we go too long. Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion. So, Tory Lanez has been formally charged in the shooting of Megan Thee Stallion.
Hallelujah. For
those who have not been necessarily following this story, it was a hot topic at the time. And that's not to downplay it, the seriousness of it, but I say that because it was like social media was on fire. Because for a while, and this happened back in July, Megan wasn't saying who shot her. We just knew that Megan had gotten shot. So she basically eventually came out and said that Tory had shot her. He has denied this. He even recently put out an album, Delora, with multiple tracks on it, allegedly denying this and trying to give his version of events. So he has now been formally charged with 3 counts: 1 count of assault with a semi-automatic firearm, 1 count of carrying a loaded firearm, 1 count of assault with a semi-automatic firearm, and 1 count of carrying a loaded concealed firearm in a vehicle. My apologies. He still, at this point, is denying this. His arraignment has been pushed back to November. At this point, Megan has not in any way altered her story. She just did a full opinion piece for the New York Times, still talking about the need to protect Black women. What are your thoughts at this point in time about this situation, Delora?
So my thoughts are, I was really concerned when Meg revealed that Tory Lanez shot her. and how she lied to the police because she wanted to protect him. Because we have always been, but because of technology and social media, it's now in the forefront of police brutality. And she felt like if she had told the truth at the time, both she and him would be in some real big trouble. So my biggest concern after she waited all this time, then revealed it, was that no one would do anything about it because it was too late. So when I was scrolling on Instagram and saw that he had charges, I was so happy. I'm like, yes, this fool does not need to get away with what he did. And his response has been so ignorant. I mean, she already said that he and his people were going through blogs to say that she was lying. And that's why she decided to come out on that now iconic live and said what she said.
She said what she said.
About him shooting her in both of her feet. And this fool had the audacity to release an album the same day as the Breonna
Taylor verdict.
I was already gutted that day after that decision. But when I saw this fool do the same thing, I was like, I don't have any energy for him. He's not worth my energy. And so I'm glad he has charges against him, and I'm hoping that he gets deported. And I hope he never works in this industry again.
He is facing, Delora, he's facing 22 years and 8 months in prison.
Wish it was longer.
The maximum. That's the maximum.
Because the fact that I think I have zero patience for him because he did what he did and he's taking zero accountability for his actions. And I have no tolerance for stupidity on that level. What are your thoughts?
I mean, you hit so many things, which is why y'all hear all of my this story of all the things that have been going on in 2020 hit me very hard when it first happened. And again, to your point, I think just because we're in a year where our lives feel like they're always in such imminent danger. So to your point about her initial thought being protecting him and thinking about him even after she's been shot by somebody who at the time she considered a friend, thereafter, I think that's what upset me more than anything, right? Is because I put myself in those shoes and I think about the idea of, because I have multiple long-time male friends and I love all of y'all, but the idea that any one of them would assault me in some type of way and then try to find justification in it and try to paint it as if it's some he said, she said situation where I protected you. I could have immediately told the police what you did, and I'm only being forced to do this because you're trying to not take accountability for your actions, deeply disturbs me. And so when I go on Instagram and I go to the Shade Room or any other site and I see all the comments and I see the idea that she's lying, somebody explain to me, somebody make it make sense to me as to why you feel Megan would be lying. If they had the relationship that even Tori claims they had, where he tries to say that it was more romantic than Megan has ever alluded to, which could just be in his mind, that why would she then lie? Like, I've even heard someone say, well, there was no video evidence, but there was a whole helicopter that was out there that showed her.
I'm surprised she was walking.
She was leaking blood from her feet. Like, so, she got shot. Supposedly there were only 4 people in that vehicle. Megan, her best friend, Tori, and his security. So I've also heard, well, maybe Tori felt Megan was a threat. In what way? Right. Somebody make it make sense to me. In what way was she a threat if he had security?
And her also had a gun. Or cussing him out, it does not justify him shooting her in both of her feet.
And again, the fact that this is the conversation, right? That's what is so upsetting to me. Why is it that this, I swear to God, if it had been, because they had left Kylie Jenner's party, if it had been Kylie Jenner who had gotten shot that night, this would have been the most epic, crazy story of 2020. Kris Jenner would have burned fucking America to the ground.
Yes.
If Tory Lanez had shot Kylie Jenner. And so it just so
and you wonder why
deeply.
Megan is all over the place saying protect Black women.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that Megan, after he dropped this album, which for one, fuck all of y'all who listen to that album. Let me be clear.
What she said.
Because how dare you support somebody putting out music right now when you know the seriousness and the ramifications of the situation? I didn't hear any of y'all coming out in all of these different circumstances saying, well, maybe the cop had another side too. But y'all want to say that about Tory Lanez because you're a fan of his fucking music? Excuse me.
Stupid.
No. I've had these conversations so many times about the craziness that fandom does to people's minds. I said after the Chris Brown Rihanna incident, and this is not to throw Chris Brown under the bus, I would never again be such a fan of somebody that I cannot recognize that they are still a human being and therefore have fault in their actions.
Preach.
Don't come to me as a Tory Lanez fan and say, well, we need to hear his side of the story. The truth will come to light. That's all bullshit.
Period.
Explain to me the justification for one, Megan lying, and two, if Tory felt the need to release an album, supposedly saying that they were in some romantic relationship and that they were close, why he's insinuating that she would lie in that situation, in that relationship.
Has gained the reputation of being the most least problematic female rapper out there, whereas Tory Lanez have had allegations of abuse in past relationships. And I mean, it doesn't make any sense, and I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, you kind of had to get over the fandom thing also when it came to like Cosby, when it came to
Michael Jackson was the biggest one for me, and
so
that broke my heart.
So I mean, that's a deeper conversation that we could have later. You know, can you separate the artist and their talent, their music, or TV, film, whatever, what have you? Or
I come down hard one way on this. I come down very hard.
Where do you draw the line? But Tory Lanez isn't that. I can't name you a song that he's popular for. Honestly, I remember him mainly for quarantine twerking. What was the thing?
Yeah, he had he was doing his thing. And again, even if I were a fan, for people who are fans, take the minute to really think about this situation and take your love out of it. First of all, as a fan, you don't know this person. That's one thing that I had to come to the conclusion of too. So when you're a fan of someone, you don't know these people. You've never had a conversation with them. You don't know anything about them. Nope. Why do you go so hard?
Might not even like them. Y'all might not mesh.
Exactly. Why do you go so hard for their character and try to validate their actions? Do they even know your name? They do not. So I'm gonna need y'all to sit down for a second and again, put some logic into the situation when you're having these conversations, because it has so deeply disturbed me to see some of the comments that have gone on since the situation occurred. And I'm so disappointed in so many of y'all.
It's like, what is your whole life like?
I have to remove myself. Yeah, I have to remove myself because it is, and again, 2020 is a crazy year. It's an upsetting year. It's an upsetting year. So I'm gonna need y'all to give that a little bit more thought in your opinions about that. And sorry if I get a little heated sometimes.
No problem.
That happens with me. So if I offend you, please stick with me because I don't mean to, but I do sometimes if I mean it. And in this case, I mean it.
No worries over here.
Did you have any more thoughts on that before I move on to our next hot topic?
Nope.
So you want to go to Offset and Cardi?
Sure.
I mean, this is the article you sent. So Offset and Cardi, guys, as you know, they have had a little bit of a roller coaster of a relationship. Offset and Cardi have broken up and gotten back together within their relationship, as Jada Pinkett likes to say, multiple times it seems, but also publicly, right? You know, you had the moment where Cardi said she was done with him after he cheated. He wooed her publicly, came on stage. She took him back.
In my opinion.
Ooh, wow.
I said it.
She
Go
dropped.
ahead.
She said
Keep
what
going.
she said. So at this point, Cardi has filed for divorce. I think when you sent me that, I said that's the least surprising celebrity news I've heard in quite a while.
Absolutely.
But for her birthday, Cardi just turned 28. She had a party in Vegas. They were seen booed up and kissing. He bought a whole billboard on behalf of their daughter for Cardi. Seems like he's trying hard to potentially win her back. What are your thoughts on this story? And do you think Cardi should be giving him his potentially fourth or fifth chance?
Ashley, you also missed that he gifted her an entire Rolls Royce.
Oh, my bad. And I be forgetting about all the
crowd
shenanigans.
Chanted, "Take him back."
Oh, I didn't even see that.
That to her. Yes.
Oh, thank you for that, because I didn't even know that. That's a little toxic, but anyway.
Girl.
It's a little toxic, guys.
What are my thoughts with Cardi B and Offset? Honestly, the same emotions I had when I saw that she filed for divorce. It's just not surprising. I mean, we'll see how long they'll be together. You feeling good? It's your birthday. You're living up. You're living in large VIP Vegas. I just feel like we are also in the era of Corona, and it's easier to go with what you know than trying something new.
Hey, that's valid. That's very valid, right? That's very valid. Because, I don't know how celebrities are doing COVID. It seems like some of them are living quite well.
Some of them are actually getting quite sick too.
Ooh. Put a name on that. Put a name on that.
The Rock, Alyssa Milano. Recently.
Alyssa makes me sad because she says she's still suffering from secondhand effects of COVID.
COVID-19 is going to be a pre-existing condition because of the side effects.
Yeah. That's what I try to say. That's what I try to say to the people who are like, oh, if I get it, I want to just go ahead and get it over with. It's like,
you don't understand what you're
asking.
Respond to
exactly. You don't understand what you're asking. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah. And two major athletes, the most famous soccer player, what's his name?
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yes.
His fat ass.
Girl. Anyway, yes. He got it, and then the coach of like Alabama just got it.
Nick Saban, yeah.
Yeah, so people are getting it out here in these streets. And Cardi.
Rest in peace, baby.
Cardi
Lakers.
out here living like, congrats, Lakers. Living out here like COVID don't exist, which again, she's 28. She's made some really smart decisions, but she absolutely acts her age. So, Offset was looking real rough without her, like he needed her. And I hope that he remembers that, when they do this again, because they are together as of right now. But again, this is the birthday high. Let's see what happens by Christmas. She don't want to move to Atlanta, and she doesn't like New York. I mean, she doesn't like LA. She misses New York. It's either New York or LA. She ain't going to Atlanta, and that's home for him. So,
okay, well, that's putting some color on it because I didn't know their living dynamics at all. I guess with this story, again, to your point, I just felt like it's just a cycle, and she's human, and we're all human, and we know that cycle. Again, that's why we talked about. No,
they're not going to be together
for
20 years. If they are, that would be shocking.
Shocked. This is why when we talked about normal people in episode 1, again, I think sometimes it takes such a strength to be able to remove yourself from situations that are not in your best interest. It takes a strength because when you're already emotionally invested, sometimes financially invested, they have a child together, it can be hard to fully extract yourself from those situations. And I just wonder, I guess, too, with these stories, if he goes this hard when they're broken up, where's your energy when you guys are together?
Hiding phones, calling up third-rate rappers to have all types of situations with. Like, it's stupid. It's so stupid.
And again, I'm not in your marriage. I don't know, but it seemed like he puts a lot of effort in when they're split up. Where's this energy when you guys are together?
And let's be honest. I give respect where respect is due. So the Migos have been popular, but Cardi's popping. We'll see. I think she might pass him. I think she has passed him.
I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, I was never a Migos fan, so it's hard for me to say. Not that I'm a Cardi fan, but
and then Bad and Bougie. And honestly, I didn't even know about Bad and Bougie until Donald Glover's acceptance speech at the Golden Globes. You remember that? When everybody else decided to look up Migos, and that's when they became even bigger crossover hits. Yeah.
That's funny. All right, so our last hot topic is one you wanted to discuss, Coming to America 2. Go ahead and take it, girl.
Oh, okay. You might have to edit this out because I don't have it in front of me, Ashley. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I'll speak to what your general sentiments were, which is that Coming to America 2, basically just due to COVID and the fact that nobody's going to movie theaters, Paramount Pictures decided to sell Coming to America 2 to Amazon Studios for a whopping $125 million.
Go ahead, Eddie Murphy. Congratulations, sir.
Absolutely. And I thought the last article I saw said he was still going to be the deciding factor in that kind of really that deal being solidified. And when it is, I guess it will drop on Amazon December 18th. So
in time for the holidays.
I didn't even know what the storyline was. I just looked it up last night.
So
he's going to have a long, do you want to hear it or do you want me to not tell you?
I like to be surprised. We can hold off. It's highly anticipated. I'm excited.
It is absolutely. So I guess the only thing, and I was texting another one of my friends last night who was a super head for like the movies and all that. I'm just afraid they're gonna shit the bed. Like I'm so nervous that after all these years, I mean, Coming to America is a staple, is a classic Black film. Y'all better bring it.
Exactly.
And Coming to America too.
It's actually my number one Eddie Murphy film.
It's a lot. It's most people's.
Yeah. Like
it's most people's that are. I mean, I can't speak to any other persuasion, but for Black folk, it is most people's. Yes. I'm curious to see what they do with it when you do finally see what the movie is about, because I just looked at it last night. I was confused. So I'm confused as to the transition between movie 1 and movie 2. So I'll be curious. I think everybody's going to watch. But again, the level of satisfaction with this sequel
and you know what I'm interested in is how it's going to be now that we live in a world where Wakanda exists on the big screen. Because Coming to America was so significant at the time because there was nothing like it before outside of like Roots or something.
That's such a good point. A good point.
There was a like the same way we showed up for Black Panther, our parents showed up for Coming to America, you know, taking pride in.
Yeah, because they said it did like 300 million.
Yes. And then, taking pride in our African heritage and you know,
and we got to see us as royalty.
Yes, exactly. And so it's going to be interesting because, like I said, that's like number one. And then Wakanda blew that out of the water. Oof. And then
Wakanda
forever. So it should be interesting. I'm excited though.
And I'm super excited. But again, I'm nervous. I'm excited, but nervous. I feel like I'm like hedging my expectations.
And we will definitely be recapping it.
Oh, absolutely. That's on the list. Do not fear. That's on the list. So that was our last hot topic. All right. So this week's recap, Ms. Delora is leading it on Enola Holmes, a Netflix original. Go ahead, girl.
Yes. Like Ashley said, we are recapping Enola Holmes, a Netflix original, release date September 23rd, 2020. So here's a quick synopsis. When Enola Holmes, Sherlock's teen sister, discovers her mother missing, she set off to find her, becoming a super sleuth in her own right as she outwits her famous brother and unravels a dangerous conspiracy around a mysterious young lord. The film stars Millie Bobby Brown, better known for her work in Stranger Things, as Enola Holmes, Henry Cavill, best known as Superman, and The Witcher, as Sherlock Holmes, or I think I'll be referring to him as Sherlock. Like, that was going on online, and it was hilarious because he was busting through those suits. Okay. Sam Claflin, better known for his work in Hunger Games and You Before Me, as Maycroft Holmes, the legendary Helena Bonham Carter as Adoria Holmes, newcomer Louis Partridge as I'm gonna call him, I don't know how to say his name, Ashley. You know how to say his name?
So it's Viscount.
Yeah,
is his first name.
Yes, Viscount Tewksbury.
Yeah, Viscount Tewksbury. Yeah, it's Lord. He's a Lord. It doesn't matter, guys. If you watch it, it don't matter.
I'm gonna call him the Marquis because I had to look it up because I was like, what in the world is a Marquis?
I looked that up too. Or just call him the Lord, like Scott Disick likes to
call
himself. Just call him the Lord.
Thank you. And the way they were saying it through the film was like super fast. I'm just like, okay. But really quick, I wanna give you the definition of Marquis, a member of the British peerage ranking below a duke and above an earl. So the more you know. I like to highlight Susan Wakuma as Edith. She is the only person of color, but she made such a dynamic appearance that she's definitely noteworthy. Absolutely. And I like to also mention that the director, Henry Bradbeer, he's done projects like Fleabag and Killing Eve. So a little background. This movie is based on the bestseller books. The first book, The Case of the Missing Marquis. There's a total of 6 books, and like I mentioned, it's a Netflix original, and it's pretty well liked. So, Ashley, what are your thoughts about this film?
So,
we'll start with ratings, and then we'll get into the spoilers very soon.
Yes. So this was going to be a hidden gem. And you're like, no, we need to recap this. So I definitely enjoyed it. As usual, I've now watched it twice so I could be fresh for the show.
Yes.
It was so cute. It's another one of those I kind of discovered on like a Saturday morning. And really, it was a 2-hour, film that I just really enjoyed getting to see Millie Bobby Brown kind of break out of her shell of Stranger Things and being 11. And it was so refreshing to see a 16-year-old play a 16-year-old and to really get to follow this journey with her. I had no idea in my previous incarnations of Sherlock Holmes watching, which has been Robert Downey Jr. and
amazing
and Johnny Lee Miller from Elementary, that he had siblings. So it was just interesting to think that he had, a younger sister and to what she would be like. I found the movie to be absolutely it's interesting from beginning to end. If I have to give it a rating, I guess I will give it a B+, and that's not because I didn't thoroughly enjoy it, but just because I think for the sake of consistency for me with ratings, it's going to take a lot to get an A out of me. And I know I gave Normal People an A, but Normal People really rocked me in a very good way.
Lot of emotions.
Yeah, so that's not, my B+ is not to say I didn't enjoy it, but my B+ is to say I really did enjoy it, and I think there's a lot of room for growth. I hope they do some sequels. I hope we get to see Millie continue down this road of, getting to be a beautiful young lady on camera and getting to star in her own vehicles. But I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to recap this. What were your thoughts?
I thought it was absolutely delightful.
I think that's what you text me.
I was just about to say, when I finished it, I was just like, that was delightful. It was refreshing, like you said. Millie Bobby Brown is a star.
She is.
She killed it. Like, she just embodied the role so well. And stellar cast. Okay, it was amazing to see so many talented actors in one place. Fun fact, she's a producer on the movie.
is. Yes, she
and I was
is.
so impressed. I cannot wait to see what she's gonna do. And when I found out it was based off of books, I got super excited because I'm like, yes, sequels. Thank you.
Exactly. And as we talked about before, the best content comes from books. Like it really does.
Absolutely.
Stories are so well developed. Because stories are so well developed when they come from books.
It's usually the movies that take a beating. So right now we're gonna go ahead and get into.
Oh, you didn't give your rating. You didn't give your rating.
Thank you, Ashley. I gave it an A.
Okay.
I gave it an A. I loved it so much. Like I said previously, it was just refreshing. It was fun. Again, it's not a BBC moment, but I love a good British period piece. Come on. And her costumes were gorgeous. Yes. Everybody just looked amazing, and it was quirky and fun. I loved it. It was great escapism for me.
I also enjoyed the style, the fact that they had her breaking that fourth wall and being able to talk directly to the audience, which I didn't know was influenced from Fleabag. So the fact that we both loved and watched Fleabag, if anybody hasn't seen that, it's on Amazon, 2 seasons.
We might have to consider recapping that one day.
We can definitely go back. We can go back, but I definitely enjoyed that way of storytelling. So that was definitely a plus. But go ahead.
Absolutely. She said so much with her looks. I loved it. So we're going to go ahead and move forward. Spoiler alert. So going into the flow of the movie, you want to talk about, have you noticed any themes with the overall movie before I go down the events of the film?
Give me an idea of what you mean by theme.
So what I picked up was female empowerment, exclamation point, exclamation
absolutely.
point.
Absolutely.
Point,
yes.
Coming of age. And then also enjoyed the mother-daughter dynamic of the movie. It really tugged at my heartstrings because I have a close relationship with my mom.
Same. Always does. Makes me tear up every time. So yeah, I agree. And then politics, obviously, this ends up being very heavy politically. And as we know, given the current climate we're in, that matters. And I can see why we can see why it was dropped when it was dropped. Yeah. So and also it's very youth centric, and the idea that I think that they were trying to propel young people to feel like they matter.
And they can do something today. You don't have to wait to be absolutely influential. Like I believe there were a lot of quotables in this film, and I think it's because it's based off of a film, but
based off a book.
Or based off a book. Thank you. And I love it. One of the reoccurring quote in particular was, "There are 2 paths you can take, Enola, yours or the path others choose for you." And I was like, Mama,
I had that written down too, girl.
Okay.
And they also said a couple of times, like, the future is yours. And again, I think that's speaking directly to the young people who are going to watch this film and realize that, you know, even if you don't have a right to vote yet in this election, if you're Millie Bobby Brown's age, we are going to rely on our youth, as we always have, for whatever the future is going to look like. So please become active, become mobile, realize your power. The younger you are and you realize your power, the greater influence you'll be able to have on the future. So it's
take ownership of your voice.
It was a beautiful message.
Yes. Okay. So the film starts with Enola making her way to the train station. She's going to meet her brothers there. And she's speaking straight to the camera. And in this time, she informs us that her mom is missing. Her mom has been a staple, honestly, her whole world since birth, because her father passed away when she was a baby, and she's the youngest of her family, so she doesn't have a close relationship with her brothers, again, who are Sherlock Holmes and Maycraft Holmes. And so her mama goes missing the morning of her 16th birthday, and she leaves her this gift. And in it, she she leaves clues because her mom is a lover of puzzles, of anagrams, or ciphers. And it's up to Enola to figure out this mystery. And so her brothers didn't recognize her when she arrived at the train station. They literally walked past her. And you learn really quickly the family dynamics. So Enola, I like to describe her as wild, free, not of the women of her generation. How would you describe her, Ashley?
Same. I loved Enola so much. The fact that her mother was able to really teach her in very unconventional ways, from everything from archery to self-defense to like chemistry and all these things. And again, the era that this movie is set in is like the 1800s. So you're talking about English women who would not have had a lot of rights and privileges. And her mother in and of herself is this very unconventional character. And so she raises her daughter kind of in that same essence, but even a little bit more so, because I think with her being the next generation, she foresees her daughter having even more freedom and flexibility than she does. So I loved, as my personality, which Delora knows, not everybody knows, dictates, I absolutely love when a woman has the right to do and be everything she wants to be in life. So I was all for it.
I felt like Mama Sherlock was such a badass, and I loved what she ingrained in her daughter. I honestly, watching the film, I thought to myself, I need to take notes because I want to be that type of mama. You know what I mean? Like just getting her prepared for the world.
Absolutely.
And she honed Enola's love for reading and learning and decoding and, just being a critical thinker, which is so important. And again, to our conversation earlier, using our minds, understanding like you're a woman, you have intelligence, you can be a strategist, you can figure it out.
You are fully capable, honey.
Fully capable. And so she meets her brother, her oldest brother, Mycroft. I would call him more of a traditionalist.
Hated him.
He was the worst. He described Enola as unbroken, undereducated, poorly dressed. And again, like I was saying earlier, if I were to describe Enola myself, I would call her brave, fearless, and brilliant. Okay. And then with Sherlock, I would consider him an aloof genius. What were your first impressions on Sherlock?
Yeah, I mean, so again, hated Mycroft. Sorry,
Awful.
Sam. This was a character that usually I love him. I'm like, I hate your guts. Henry Cavill as Sherlock Holmes. Again, my previous incarnations of Sherlock have been Robert Downey Jr. and Johnny Lee Miller.
Yes.
And I was a little, I don't even want to say disappointed. I just felt like this version was a little more repressed. Yeah, he was just like very stiff and very proper, and that's not really the version of Sherlock I'm used to. I really prefer kind of this eccentric version of him that I've gotten in other films. And again, I know that as an actor, Henry was able to make it his own, but I was a little bit disappointed. And then also, obviously, the relationship between him and his sister, he's very hands-off. And given the circumstances that Enola finds herself in, being left by her only caregiver at 16 years old, and her brother coming and becoming such a force in Mycroft's character, that I really had hopes at the very beginning that Sherlock, given the type of character I've known him to be, would have stepped in sooner than he does. We can get to that later, but I was a little disappointed.
I hear you. And so basically she meets her brothers at the train station, and they're all coming together to figure out what to do now that their mother is missing. And so when Mycroft shows up to their ancestral home, it is terribly unkept. And
his whole estate, it has a name. It's a whole,
yes, the whole estate. It's called is it Farnell? I believe it's Farnell.
And that sounds about right. Their father died. Did you mention already that their father died? Okay. Yeah. So their father died, leaving the home to Mycroft.
The oldest. Yes,
oldest,
because
but the
women weren't
mom,
allowed to own land at that time.
but
And
mom had asked to take care of it and take care of
I was getting into that.
Enola. Oh, my
Yep.
bad. Go ahead. I don't mean to get ahead of you. Sorry,
Um,
people.
so he shows up to the estate that he left in the hands of his mother, and he is completely disgusted and frustrated and very snobby about it. So apparently their mother has been asking for money to keep up with the house in order to add a bathroom and pay for, teachers. So a piano teacher, an etiquette teacher, a governess. And he shows up and none of that is done. So essentially, Mama Sherlock took some money. And I think one of the things this film did and that I enjoy, I love a good flashback. And so there's tons of flashbacks in this movie, but you'll see when Enola is describing her mother, she talked about how privacy was super important to her mother. And in the
highest virtue.
The highest virtue. And in the flashback, she remembers walking at night past her mom's room, and there's a lot of women in this room apparently having a meeting. Immediately, the way they're dressed, you're thinking suffragette. And again, the suffragette movement was happening during that time. A little history lesson. It happened during 1866 through 1918, and then the law that accepted everybody happened in 1928. So we're right at 1900 during this time of the movie, and immediately her mom is part of the revolution. So one could think that she essentially used the money to fund those endeavors. So Mycroft is, again, just up in arms over all the money he sent to his mother through the years for us not to know where the money is gone. Sherlock, being aloof, as we mentioned before, pretty much shrugging his shoulders like, well, maybe she needed for something else. You never know. So Mycroft's decision was, okay, I'm your ward now, Enola. We're going to send you to boarding school, which is the one thing that Enola has no desire to do. She feels like her education and everything was good enough. So
I believe Mycroft said that she needed to be broken and built back up. It was a disturbing quote.
Yes, you are correct. So that night before, actually, we did get a chance to meet the headmistress of the boarding school that Enola was supposed to go to, and it was not a pleasant experience. It's with Miss Harrison. And I wanted to note, she absolutely had a crush on Mycroft, by the way.
Yes, she did. And she slapped Enola in the face.
Girl,
she slapped Enola in the face.
I was like, the audacity.
Yo,
who are you?
We would have been laying hands that night. Let me just say, she would have got her ass whooped. You're not gonna come in my ma'am. You're not gonna come in my house and put your hands on me. You crazy?
Insanity. Anyway. So that night before she is scheduled to go off with Miss Harrison to go to boarding school, she was mulling over the clues her mom left behind her, behind for her, because she's such, she was just so much into word games. And through Enola's wits, she was able to find a wad of cash behind a painting of a flower that her mom left for her. And it left her instructions of, the future is yours. And she's like, what does this mean? And so she, taking after her older brother, Sherlock, decided to find her mother. And so her first clue made her want to get up and go to London. And because she's smart and she didn't want to get caught, the next morning she got dressed in Sherlock's old clothes and hopped on a train, What are your thoughts at this point, Ashley?
Yeah, so I labeled this the beginning in my notes.
Okay, sorry. I wanted to. Okay,
No. I'm just saying I literally have it broken out. It seems like probably the way you're going to do it. So I have this as the beginning. Then I have the next part is the search. So the only couple of additional notes I have from the beginning is, again, my disappointment for a little bit with Sherlock was it seemed like he was so disinterested, but there were a couple of points in there that I did love between the two of them, which was one, when he comes out and he's talking about this pine cone that she had from her childhood that ends up being significant throughout the rest of the film for sentimental reasons, called Dash. And you realize, okay, well, he may not have been fully present, but you can tell that he loves his sister and that there is some relationship there between the two of them. So I found that very endearing. And the second one was when the one housekeeper that the mom did keep on payroll during all this time mentions the fact that Enola is more like Sherlock than she is Mycroft, in that they both have this genius in them, and that she mentally runs circles around her the same that Sherlock did, and that's one of the contentious reasons between her relationship and both of their relationships really with Mycroft, because you realize even though we're so focused on Enola, you see the dynamics between Mycroft and Sherlock as well, which is that Mycroft, being the oldest, feels like he had to be the one to take on the family and take on the responsibility, and Sherlock kind of got to do his own thing. But I think a part of that is really the fact that Sherlock is just a different type of person, and Enola inherited that as well. This freedom of thought, this freedom of expression. So I enjoyed those two things as a part of kind of the beginning, because I think it's going to be very relevant as we get to the end and we talk about the future for Enola and her capacity as a young woman in society. So those are my only additional notes from the beginning. I think you covered it beautifully.
Thank you. And I will say, and I also noted here, just the level of detachment in the family relationship. Mycroft and Sherlock seemed just so detached to their mom. And she was with them before Enola. Now, granted, with Enola, I'm sure it was a lot different compared to how she raised her sons, but the level of disconnect was a little bit alarming for me, because I'm just like, what is this family dynamic truly? So
yeah, that's a really good point that I didn't even think about. Was, again, they're just showing them as being older, so you don't, Enola is only 16, so you still feel the attachment that obviously she's going to feel with her mother. She's only 16 years old, but to your point, relationships between mothers and daughters and mothers and sons are different.
They are. And I'm
maybe
sure
in
they
this
had
case,
the governess and all the teachers and all that stuff that Enola did not have.
Because they were wealthy. Yeah. As we know, in many wealthy families and situations, it's not necessarily that familial relationship with children isn't always there, because that wasn't their primary caregiver. So that's a good point.
Yes. All right. So Enola gets on the train, and on the train she meets the Lord. It was I love how they meet. It was a cute, what they call it, meet cute.
Yep.
So Enola gets on the train disguised as a boy, and in her cart there's a bag with someone in it, and he falls to the ground, and he cuts himself out of it, and he introduced himself, the terribly long name, but again, we're going to refer to him as the Lord. And he's on the escape. He is under a lot of pressure. At this point, we don't know this, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. We find out that his dad had died, and so he's next in line, and he has essentially a lot of responsibilities on his small shoulders. So
because he appears to be Enola's same age and not,
yes,
ready for this life.
Exactly. So Enola, being extremely observant, as an excellent detective would be, she noticed that a guy in a bowler hat is looking for him, because she heard his family before getting on the train essentially looking for the Lord, and she didn't want to get caught in the crossfires of that. She leaves the cart, and then the bowler guy brushes up against her, and he goes into the car, and you hear ruckus. And so one of my favorite quotes during this time is, again, Mama Sherlock came with all the gems, and she pretty much said, paint your own picture, Enola. Don't be thrown off course by other people, especially
men. Yeah.
But what does Enola do? She turned around and helped the Lord, because he was about to get thrown off this train. And in the midst of all that, the only way to escape imminent danger was jumping off the train. Mm-hmm. So what did you think about meeting the Lord for the first time?
I love the role reversal, that he was kind of the damsel in distress, as they say in this situation.
Excellent point. Yes.
It was very reminiscent of Hunger Games for me, which I love, kind of getting to see a woman who is in total control.
We definitely connected over our love of the Hunger Games.
Absolutely. Team PETA always.
All day, every day.
But again, I just loved that. I loved that, she was on this path. Something we'll find out about later, and I'm sure you'll touch on it, is that Enola is a sucker for really those who are not able to protect themselves. And I think that was something she saw in him, is like, I'm strong. I have the ability to be there. So in this case, I can't just turn a blind eye. Because you would think sometime in this moment, she'd be like, she kicked him out of the little rail car, said, listen, I have my own shit.
Her mom is missing.
I don't need this.
Upon her shoulders to find her mom.
Because I put him as the distraction. Like, that's how I labeled him.
A man is always a distraction, of course.
Woo, woo, woo. But he also, obviously, another point I had written down was that he's entitled, because he is this lord. He's used to a certain lifestyle. When you see his family, you see that they're well-to-do. Not that Enola's not, but he's at a different level of being well-to-do. He's titled. He's titled.
Exactly.
So, when we first meet him, again, I love that kind of role reversal that we get to see. And I'm interested in the journey, because at this point, I didn't know whether there was going to be a love interest, because Enola says at the beginning of the film, like, she doesn't want to live this traditional life. She doesn't want a husband. So I was curious as to whether or not this would be a part of her journey or not. But as you love and I love, we all love a little love and a little romance in our stories. So what would it be without a little love? Go ahead, girl.
Well said. That was an excellent point about the role reversal. I thought it was peculiar. And honestly, the first time I watched it, I didn't really grasp his position right away. And I think it's because I had no idea what a marquise was, right?
Yes.
And so it was interesting, and I loved how she just did not have any time for him. But
she said, "Get out of here! You're a problem for me. Your problems are gonna become my problems. Get out of here."
Period. And I'm like, yes, ma'am. Yes. I should say miss. So,
and again, this girl is 16 years old. Do y'all remember what y'all were like at 16 years old? Like, I would have been so distracted by some boy that I may have thought was cute at 16, them hormones.
And honestly, he didn't get cute until we cut his hair. So we'll go into that. Okay,
we'll get there. Then again, I don't know. If I was on a mission to find my mom, I don't know. I may not have got distracted.
I would not have gotten sidetracked. But anyway, they jumped off. They jumped off the train, and I want to highlight this because this is something that I noticed that's going to be important later on. When they were walking by foot to London, because that's the destination, he was very knowledgeable of the plants, and she was just like, "Oh my goodness, we're starving," and he knew right away, "Oh, this right here is a wheat. This right here is a mushroom. We have enough for dinner." So. And that night they also decided to cut his hair because they need to keep him in disguise because his life is in danger. And so basically,
I love that moment too, where she smiles at the camera. He's like, "Listen, I'm not totally useless." And you see her kind of smirk, and she's starting to kind of fall for him. Cause it's like, "Oh, I guess you do a little something, something, huh, sir?"
Yes, because, as soon as they jumped off the the train, forgive me. She was like, "Aren't you going to say thank you?" And he was so oblivious. He was like, "For what?" And she's like,
entitled.
"Sir, I saved your behind. You would have been in the lake."
So entitled.
That was off-putting. That's also another reason why I didn't really try to stake my claim to his character at all, like in terms of like, okay, so they make it to London and he continues to go wherever he was going to go, and she continued her search to find her mom. She is still in Sherlock's clothes, so she decided to go and change her clothes. And
can I say something real quick?
Of course, go ahead.
So one thing I just wanted to say is when they were out there, that's when you first realize that this could potentially, one of the reasons why he may be being followed or trying to be killed, essentially, is for political reasons.
For political reasons, because that's an excellent point, Ashley, because you don't really understand the gravity of their political moment until you get to London, when you realize there's a major vote coming up. And
a reform for opening up the right to vote
to women.
And to other men too, because at that point it seems like it was just to the wealthy. Yeah, it was just to the wealthy. That's right. And then I was just gonna say too, the scene in the dress shop when she comes in reminded me of Pretty Woman so much.
Oh, did it?
It did.
Well, and that's what I was gonna get to with her going to this dress shop, because she has to blend in now. And mind you, she also has a lot of money courtesy to Mama Sherlock. She looked ravishing in red. She looked so amazing. And it was just, I always love a big reveal moment where you finally see her dressed up. She decided to wear the corset and all the things that's required of a woman at the time, because again, at home in the country, she was very much a free spirit.
But it was her choice, as she likes to say. It can be seen as a sign of oppression, but in this case, it was her choice.
Because she was on her mission to find her mom.
She had to blend in.
Yes, and so she also asked the store clerk to, where she could find lodging. And the store
never trusted that lady.
Never. She was like, oh, I know a place. And she found a hole in the wall for Enola. And Enola, being sheltered like she was, she had no idea.
Rats on the floor. Come on.
So
that was scary.
It was gross. But yeah, she decided to stay there. So now that she's in London, she decided to visit a correspondent that her mom had in London, Edith. So it was a tea shop that upstairs they were teaching women just jiu-jitsu. Forgive me for not saying that properly. How do you say it, Ashley?
Jiu-jitsu, self-defense, fight training.
Which again, I'm loving this because I'm like, yes, women weren't always so defenseless. Like there were some women who were out here kicking some butt. Okay. Absolutely.
And the fact that she had to disguise it as a different type of business was probably so on point historically, in terms of probably the things that women had to do to be able to blend in society, but at the same time exercise those rights and move us forward in history.
Yes. And I like to go back just a little bit. During this time with Enola in London, the brothers discover that she's missing. And as you mentioned before, the housekeeper essentially encouraged Sherlock to find the sister.
Please care about your only young little baby sister who's 16 years old out here in this big bad world.
And according to the housekeeper, she didn't have much faith that Enola would be able to navigate the big world by herself. But as you see, she's doing pretty well for herself.
She did a beautiful. I mean, she was leaving at this point too coded messages for her mom in different publications.
Yes,
so that she could get her mom's attention and get a meet scheduled.
Absolutely. So she meets Edith, who apparently she's worked with before, teaching her this martial arts for self-defense. Mm-hmm. And Edith is not very forthcoming with any information, really. She's pretty much trying to find the whereabouts of her mom, and I don't know if this conversation was beneficial. Ashley, what were your thoughts?
Well, I think at this point in time, so you kind of mentioned that you had realized the suffragette movement was a part of the mom's plans at the point where you see the flashback to her plans at home with all these women. This was the moment that I realized that was really the agenda, because you know, you start to realize that, again, voting is a big point of this movie at this moment in time. And it seems like from everything Eve is saying that she just feels like, you know, the mom is on this path and there's a really big reason behind it. Because at the beginning of the movie, as a viewer, you're like, what mom leaves her 16-year-old daughter out the ass and just is like, listen, like, what could be bigger than needing to take care of your child, essentially?
Clues. And who, what if she wasn't able to figure out those clues?
Exactly. Like, you're just assuming that you raised your daughter to be brilliant enough to figure out whatever the puzzles are. And obviously
they were not easy. They were not easy at all.
But I think this is the moment where I realized that it's not just Eudoria who is on this path, that she has obviously support, and that there's this level of independence that they're trying to push Enola to be. You know, one thing, I don't know if we mentioned in the beginning, but Enola's name backwards spelled alone. Yes. It's almost as if her mother had been preparing her since birth for her future and what that was going to entail. So I think it was just a moment where I realized that, you know, potentially Enola is really going to have to go on this journey by herself. You know what I mean? Like, I was kind of hoping at some point in time, maybe she's going to get some help. Maybe she's going to get some support. But I think in this moment,
maybe her brother Sherlock's going to help her.
Exactly. I think at this moment, I'm like, well, listen, I guess Enola, it's you and us as the audience who are on this journey together. And you as a 16-year-old really have to assert that independence and figure it out. Because I think even Edith said to her in the tea shop, like, listen, don't be here just to find your mom. Be here because you also are trying to, like, find yourself and discover things about yourself. I thought that was powerful.
And it's so funny that you say that, because one of the things that I also wrote down in my notes for how I felt about this film was, if you want to get it done, you have to do it yourself. And this shows up multiple times.
Ooh, it sure does.
And sure does. The first is, you know, Enola doing this case by herself, because again, I was under the assumption, oh, maybe she'll have her brother help or something. But no, is this another thing, you know, independence, you know, self-sufficiency. And so it wasn't a complete bust visiting Edith in the attic of the tea shop. She had another flashback. She saw boxes that she remembers seeing in her mom's house, or her mom room in particular, during her suffragette meeting. It was like it had a dragon on it, and it was fireworks, or to be nicely, dynamite in the box.
Girl, bombs.
She immediately had that flashback where she saw that same symbol, and then she heard her mom using coded language. Again, being as brilliant as she was able to figure out one of the places she had to go to was the Limehouse Lane. So Enola then makes her way to this street where she finds the dynamite shop, and she realized that some of the work that these suffragettes are working on could be potentially dangerous, because they had a lot of dynamite in their possession.
And she realized that things that her brothers had told her previously about her mother might be accurate, because all she has of the vision of her mother is her own experience. And she's like, oh,
caregiver.
Maybe mom is dangerous. Maybe mom is
dangerous.
Yeah,
creative,
doing her thing. Yeah.
But mom will blow some stuff up. I also put in my notes for Mama Sherlock was Mama Sherlock by any means necessary.
I mean, literally by any means necessary, right? I mean, she's
about
a path. She's on a path that you know, not to say most people don't have the balls to do it, because that sounds like, you know, there aren't other ways to accomplish things. But I think she was definitely being shown to be someone who was pretty fearless in trying to accomplish her goals.
Absolutely. So during her time at the Limehouse Lane, where all the explosives were located, the man in the bowler hat shows up again, and he attacks Enola. Thank God for her jiu-jitsu practice with her mom and her teachings from Edith. she fought him pretty well. I was really impressed until we got to the bucket full of water and he tried to drown her. And again, her being a clever girl, she pretended she was dead, and she was able to, get from that situation. Essentially, he tried to stab her, and if it wasn't for that good old
that corset saved her life, girl. Of course, it saved her life.
And in that shock, she was able to save herself and blow up some stuff with him in the midst of it, and she was able to run away.
I'm glad you felt good about the fight scene because I was disappointed. And maybe it's because I'm so used to these like fight scenes with women from like Colombiana, let's say, or like,
oh, I love Colombiana, or anything like that Zoe does. I mean,
yeah, or even like, all the superhero films where you really get to see a woman kick ass. Like, I just felt like she was on the defensive the whole time, and that's I'm very appreciative she was able to defend herself, but I literally have it written down. I really wanted her to kick his ass. Like,
she was a 16-year-old girl though. So
I know, and he was a grown man.
I guess what I'm trying to say in terms of me being impressed by her was like, she didn't go down without a fight,
She
was
did.
it the perfect fight? No,
absolutely.
But I didn't have
maybe more of a defensive fighting style. I'm not familiar with jiu-jitsu enough to know. Maybe Joe Rogan knows. I'm sure he does, but I don't know. So, again, that's just my one note from that. But otherwise, I'm glad she was able to stay alive in that moment.
I was just impressed that she was able to walk away from the situation. I guess that's where I stood.
And the assassin, again, is not even looking for her. He's looking for the Lord.
Lord, exactly. And that's where I was going to get to that. Thank you, Ashley. She realized that he's trying to pinpoint the Lord, and he doesn't care if he kills her in the process. Mm-hmm. Because obviously whoever's behind the Lord, getting got, his job isn't done until that happens.
Yo, that reminds me of The Bodyguard so hard. Like, that's true. He keeps going until he gets it done.
Yeah.
That is terrifying. Go ahead.
So essentially Enola is at a figurative crossroads because she is deciding whether or not she should move forward to finding her mom, or if she should save the Lord, because this guy obviously is still looking for her. And this is where we have our flashback. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. This is just to my point earlier about, you see a flashback of Enola who almost lost her life essentially trying to save an animal from falling over a cliff, and her mom is saying, listen, it's great to help those who are in need and are weaker than you, but it should not be at the peril of your own life. And I think that's where you see a break in her logic versus her mother's logic, which as children, we know those moments happen, but I think it was vital to, obviously Enola's decision making in this moment where she's like, listen, mom, in my head, I hear you, but I'm strong and I have the skills and what you taught me to be able to assist. And I cannot just let him potentially die knowing that I could have helped him.
She had enough power in herself to do something and make a change. So, and
again, I love that female empowerment.
Yes.
As like, listen, I am going to go save your life, sir. Okay.
Yes. So she decided to switch her priorities from finding mom to saving the Lord.
Which is why I list this section as the distraction.
Very smart. I love it. So she decided to help. So the first stop is to go to Basil Weather, to his family, to get some more information. So this is where it gets fun, right? Essentially, this whole show is a mystery, and I love the tools of the detective that she decides to use. So she loves disguise, right? So she decides to show up as a widow, so in all black. Mind you, she's 16 years old, right? But she's like, people hate asking too many questions of a grieving woman. So
I know.
Perfect disguise. I thought
brilliant.
It was brilliant and hilarious.
Yes.
And so, but she managed to get into the door and meet the Lord's mother, uncle, and grandmother. She's also presenting herself as an apprentice or an assistant to Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
Not truly revealing who she actually is, but she knows that's going to get her through the door. And so the family being extremely confused why a widow is in front of them as the assistant Sherlock. There's another gentleman there, Lishard of the Scotland Yard. So that's like essentially.
Is that his name? Girl, I had his name as Astrid, Astrod. I don't know where I got that from.
His name is Lestrade.
See, I'm glad you're doing this recap because I literally have Astrid. I don't know where I got that from. Go ahead.
And so he's essentially the top detective of the local, of
Scotland Yard.
Exactly.
England.
You know what that is.
Yes.
And he's like, you don't work with Sherlock. And I put this in quotes. Sherlock always works alone, and so
because you know him so well, sir.
So well. And essentially their back and forth essentially causes both of them to get kicked out of the house because they're just like, we don't know who sent you, but our son is missing, but we don't want to work with you, essentially. And so it was so funny because Lestrade, now I'm second guessing how to say his name.
No, I'm telling you, you're right. I think I just came up with that off of hearing it, and some of the accents I couldn't hear past. So
girl,
I'm sure
you're
right.
I couldn't get our boo the Lord's name right. She said it so fast in the film.
Yeah. That's that British speak right there. I've been struggling through some of those.
I'll refer to him as the top detective of Scotland Yard.
Okay.
He essentially, it was like a back and forth between him and Enola, pretty much saying, well, if you know Sherlock, you'll ask me 3 questions and I'll ask you 3 questions and this will determine how much we know. And the thing that was hilarious is all the questions she asked him were based on food. And he's like, why are you asking me all these food questions?
What's his favorite meal? Breakfast.
Right? But it was so cute though, because I'm like, she is his younger sister. It's not like they spent any significant time together. She probably only knows what her mom and maybe the housekeeper told her.
And also, remember, she tells him she likes, that's one of the things too that we didn't touch on in the beginning when they were having that conversation about the pine cone. She says, listen, I scraped together every bit of information I could ever get about you. And if you think about that, that's so vital, right? Like Enola does not really know him, but she's almost like in fandom of her own brother.
Right.
Because she does not have a personal relationship with him. Exactly. Because he is the Sherlock Holmes. Like he is at this point renowned for his ability to solve cases and for his genius, but she has to observe him from afar like everybody else does.
So, excellent point, Ashley. So, we cut from Enola and we see more of Sherlock Holmes. He makes his way. He's essentially tracking Enola's footsteps and makes it to the tea house. This time we see Edith actually working in the tea house. We find out that it's a revolutionary place, kind of disguised because they have a lot of banned literature on their shelves. But this is actually one of my favorite parts of the movie. Because when I tell you, I did snaps and I screamed, and of course, it's sister girl.
Go ahead and tell it. Go ahead and tell it.
So Sherlock essentially is talking to Edith, asking about his mother and also Enola. She informs him that she did see his sister and apparently a boy is involved, right? And when talking about
a useless boy.
A useless boy. And at this point, Sherlock decided to ask about his mom, and he described what his mom activities as mischief. And Edith was like, while pouring tea, like, excuse me, sir?
Wrong choice of words, brother. Wrong choice of words.
And she's like, you would say that, but you don't know what it's like to be without power. And she's like, how did you describe politics? And he described it as fatally boring. And Edith said these wonderful words. She said, you have no interest in changing a world that suits you so well.
I had to cover my mouth because I wrote down, amen.
She read him for filth. I'll read it again. You have no interest in changing a world that suits you so well. He had the nerve to say that politics was fatally boring. The world was made for you, sir.
Preach, Edith. Preach. I have this written down seriously in caps. Amen. Because I think, again, when you think about the level that we are in the world today, this, again, is supposed to be based in the late 1800s, the world we are in today, where we are in politics in this country. It was such an impactful moment that this Black woman in society is telling this privileged white man the facts, them facts. Oh, girl, gave me chills.
She was so fearless.
Gave me chills.
I literally was like, yo.
Y'all can't see me, but I was over here covering my mouth when Delora was reading that quote, because when I tell y'all, like, ooh, gets me going. Oh my goodness. That was an amazing quote and an amazing moment. For sure, in that film, that they allowed that to happen.
They allowed it to happen, and it definitely struck a chord with me. Like, I was like, I rewinded the first time I saw it. I was like, let me get this straight. What she said to him?
Again, this is why we talk about, in my opinion, pop culture, film and movies are so impactful, because you have these moments that people might not absorb otherwise. Like, you have a film,
they make it edible
you get to say something so impactful, and you get to say it in your art. That is so fucking beautiful to me. Go ahead.
Thank you, Edith. I don't think we see her again in this film, but thank you for that line. And the way that Sherlock took it, again, he didn't know how to compute it. He was just like,
because he's all about facts. He even said earlier to Enola, take the emotion out of it. Emotion is understandable, but useless. But again, he's talking from a privileged position in society.
Absolutely. Whew. All right. So instead of Enola leaving with the great detective of Scotland Yard, she goes to a yardsman or gardener and asks to switch clothes because she's going into disguise again. And she remembered from her conversation shortly after they jumped off that train with the Lord that he enjoys spending his time on his estate in the woods. So she found his treehouse. And when I tell you, she was crushing hard when she was in that treehouse. Like, oh, Lord, what were your plans? Oh, you were tricking them, but what were your true ambitions? I was like, girl, you are laying it on thick right now.
You are more brilliant than I gave you credit for, you know? And as, again, we're both well-educated women, there is definitely something to be said for a man that is of such intelligence and such, absolutely. You know, being, it's definitely sexy, just so y'all know. It's definitely sexy.
And honestly, I didn't think he was that smart either. So to see that he had a whole plan, I was like, okay, the Lord,
he sure did. He sure did have a plan. And I don't know if we touched on this before too, this is the moment where you realize, well, I don't know if you realize it in this moment, but remember at the beginning when they were talking, he says that the catalyst for him leaving his life was that tree branch almost killing him.
Yes.
And so that's a part of kind of Enola's detective work at this moment, is inspecting this tree that supposedly fell on him in this moment and his belongings, to try to figure out where he may have gone. So she's doing her detective work in this moment. It's not just her going and fawning over this little boy. She's on the hunt,
she was doing her work.
Yeah, she's on the hunt.
Eating her cake and what to say, having her cake and eating it too.
Exactly. she in the midst, she having a little crush, but she's like, listen, I'm on the hunt to find this person still,
And so she discovered his plan, and the grandmother finds her. And so their interaction was very interesting. So Enola goes down the tree. She introduces herself as May Posey. And she says that she's like 22 years old, which is hilarious. I'm like, do you think the grandma was born yesterday? But okay. But they, on their way back to the front, the front of the estate, they have this conversation, and you realize with this vote that's happening in England, it's a reform bill, right, to expand voting rights to more than the few, right? And the grandma talked about how she loved the land that the monarchy gave her family, and it's her role to protect. It's a piece of her protecting England. And Enola just thought that was an interesting conversation by, inquiring like about her now deceased son and grandson, and she mentioned that they both were progressive in their thinking, and they don't know better, essentially, because she's been around, she knows.
It's a very telling conversation.
It is. She refers to the father and son's thinking when it comes to this upcoming vote as new thinkers. So I did write that in my notes. So I put this in my notes. Next scene. Yes, dress change. Enola shows up in this cute light pink or like rose color get up, hair flowing. She's Millie Bobby Brown is such a doll. Oh my gosh. So what happened was she actually knows where the Lord is. He's at the flower market. And that was his plan all along. What did you think about this young lord wanting to escape his responsibilities to be a florist, essentially?
I loved it. I think that was such a strong bonding point for them, but not just, two bonding points was the fact they both lost their fathers, but also the fact that they were both trying to escape an oppressive, what they consider to be an oppressive societal life that was laid out for them.
Yes.
So I loved it as a real bonding point for them, because sometimes, to the point of men, you don't always think about the pressures that are also on men in society. We've talked about the pressures that are on women, but in this moment, they both had at their young ages.
In that regard.
Well, we're women, so we speak to our own experiences, but no doubt men also face amazing societal pressures. And again, he is a lord. He has going to have amazing opportunities that come with that. But also he just foresaw the next years of his life and said, I don't think this life is going to make me happy. So I want to do what in my life I feel like is going to make me happy. His father had taught him about herbs and all this stuff. He loves it. This is the life he wants to lead. So I just felt like it was such a beautiful bonding moment between them. But again, I also think it allows the audience to understand that there are these societal pressures that young people, men or women, are feeling and do feel in terms of who they're supposed to be versus who they want to be. Going back to, Enola Holmes' quote about, you can either choose the road that you want or you can choose the road that other people choose for you. Exactly. In this moment, we see both the Lord and Millie Bobby Brown's character, Enola, trying to fight against that path that other people are choosing for them.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. So she finds him in the flower market and essentially tells him, hey, it's so great to see you, but by the way, your life is still in danger. It's not funny, but
he harps on the point that she missed him. Not that his life is in danger, but that she missed him.
again, he's a darling too. Like, he's super cute.
He is adorable.
They make their way to Enola's rented room, the hole in the wall. Mm-hmm. And I want to highlight a couple of things that's in her room. She has a ton of old newspapers because, again, she's actively looking for some type of message from her mom because she knows her mom is a great, gamer. And she's just waiting for her mom to send her a message in the daily newspapers. So this is a pivotal point because while they're getting situated in her room, you find out that the great detective of Scotland Yard is ready to catch and attack them. And
boo! I wrote down boo.
This is all courtesy of that lion store clerk from the dress shop. I knew she was no good when she already showed her this hole in the wall, and then she ratted out Enola for some dollars. And so,
and you also realize that he's working with Mycroft because there was an earlier scene where they're in the barber shop.
Yep.
And he goes to Mycroft telling him about this young lady he encountered, and so for the money, he's trying to now take poor little Enola back to her brother who wants to put her into a finishing school. And
one of the things that would be something worth mentioning now, when we first arrive in England, you see missing signs for the Lord, and about halfway during her time in England, you start seeing some missing signs for her with rewards. So
yeah, they both had a bounty out on their head.
Yes, they did. And so she essentially sacrificed herself and told the Lord, jump out this window, run for your safety, I'll get caught and you'll be safe. So she is with her brother Mycroft yet again, who is even more resolute in his decision to send her to this all girls boarding school. That conversation was so intense on the way home, though. Can we talk about that?
My heart broke. I literally have down breaks my heart. So you realize, too, one of the main motivations for Mycroft in all of his dealings is, again, he considers her to be a ward. He doesn't even look at her as his sister. He looks at her as an obligation or responsibility.
And it is about... He actually is just like Sherlock. Again, what happened to them in their childhood, we will never know. But he's, like I mentioned before, extremely detached.
But his motivations are different. In Sherlock's case, he's using his mind for what he considers to be the greater good to help solve these cases, whereas Mycroft is all about stature in society. So you realize over the course of the film that Mycroft really sees Enola as a problem because he sees her as deteriorating the Holmes name in society. So that scene in the carriage where Enola is in tears and she's saying, listen, I will say that I don't even know you. I don't even know this family. And he still is yelling at her and saying, listen, you are my ward, was so visceral for me. Again, going back to the idea of being a woman, being someone's property, your life not being your own. Yes. You see Enola as this person who wants to live her best life and do what makes her happy. And her own brother wants to stifle that for the sake of his stature in society. Broke my heart, Delora.
Absolutely. And I like to note that in my notes, I put, Mycroft is such a prick.
The biggest.
So Enola finds herself at this boarding school. She doesn't fit in.
Looks unbearable.
Does visit her, which is a surprise. And even in that time, he still has not found her mother. And
can I interrupt you real quick just to say 2 points of reference? I know I've given a lot of pop culture and other film and movie references.
No worries.
I think this gave me a lot of nostalgia for other things. When you first see the scenes of her in boarding school, I have 2 references. First is that it reminded me, I've only seen one episode of The Handmaid's Tale, but it reminded me of The Handmaid's Tale. And then the other was of Kate Winslet in Titanic. I think for me with Kate Winslet in Titanic, that scene where Leonardo DiCaprio tells her that she has this fire in her and he realizes that if she keeps down the path she's going, that fire is going to burn out.
Yes.
I felt that same reaction with Enola. Like, if you had to live this life, that fire in you, that thing that makes you who you are, is going to die.
Yes.
And I don't, man or woman, you should fully understand that people should be given the right and the privilege to be exactly who they are and to live their best lives.
Preach.
And that was so visceral for me in that moment. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to give those two references.
Well said. Well said. So I will say, during this Sherlock visit, I was curious on his motivation, because again, he's aloof, detached. He's all about matter of fact. The matter of fact was he has not found their mother. He gave Enola some of the old newspaper because he knew that was something that she did. But come to find out, it was actually a care visit. What did you think about that?
So I thought it was endearing, only in the sense that I think at this point in time, you start to see a shift again in Sherlock. You know, we've been going down this journey where it seems like he's trying to be more involved, but you see this shift where he's really in this moment feeling like he's empowering Enola. And that's not something that I felt before. You know, he gives her dash and reminds her that, like, mom thought you were exceptional. Yeah. And that's important because we're at a point where Enola is feeling very defeated, right? She was captured.
Deflated,
she was
for
sent
sure.
to this finishing school. And you have her brother, neither of her brothers at this point, she's felt like they were there for her. They were a protection for her in the way she needed. And here's Sherlock in his Sherlock way, feeling like, listen, what I'm saying to you is that so you can do it. Everything is really up to you. No one can force you to do anything you don't want to do. And that not only did mom believe in you at this moment where you may feel like mom abandoned you, I believe in you.
Yeah.
So
that was beautiful.
It was endearing. Now, did I feel like he also should have broke her out of that bitch?
Girl.
Yes.
Right. But for him to be so smart, some basic things didn't seem to really occur to him.
Yes. And this was also at the end. Sorry, I know you're about to move on, but it was also
there's
almost
2 more points I want to say in this moment, but go ahead.
It was almost a slight shift in power, because you start to see, like, Enola, the mental acuity of Enola start to shift, where she feeds Sherlock back his own line about you're being emotional, take the emotion out. You know what I mean? So you start to realize that, you know, before you assumed, oh, Enola may be like Sherlock, she may be brilliant, but it's starting to be a tipping point for me in terms of their mentality that, you know what, she may be more clever than Sherlock.
Yes.
And we'll see that in the end. So go ahead.
Absolutely. And so the two things I want to talk about really quick in this scene, when she got the newspaper, the headline was "Every vote counts." Mm-hmm. And I just laughed, thinking to myself, how rich. This is the same dialogue we've been, you know, chanting in these times, but it's been going on for hundreds of years. There's absolutely nothing new under the sun.
Girl.
And of course the young lord is missing, so that's a big deal too, because the big election is coming up. And at the end of Sherlock's visit, he leaves her some words of wisdom, and it's dangle your feet in the water to attract the shark. So he leaves. Next scene, there's a package for Enola, and it's from Mycroft. And she's like, what on earth would Mycroft send to me? Yeah. And she opens it up, and it's the Lord. I really thought they were going to kiss, by the way. I was like, oh, they're so cute. They were so happy to see each other, but they kept it very, you know, very cute. Very cute.
Yes.
I love this part also when she was like, oh my goodness, I'm so happy to see you, but how we're gonna leave? And he's like, I don't know. And then she looked to the camera and she's like, do you have any ideas? I thought that was so cute.
Because first she's gonna go forward with the plan that he has formulated. She's like, nope, this isn't gonna work. The headmistress is gonna see right through you. So she has to formulate a plan on the fly to kind of try to get. So again, beautiful that you're at this point where you think Enola doesn't have anybody she can count on, and yet the Lord, who she's had to save at this point multiple times, has come through and has also now saved her. Yeah, he wasn't like, oh, I'm just gonna protect myself. Yeah,
it's not lost on him that she has saved him, and so to have someone's back and to have them return that favor is something that's truly amazing. Like, because you don't always get that, one, and two, it's like, oh, this is somebody I could potentially rely on, because she doesn't, like you mentioned before, she doesn't have that in her family.
No.
Not even with her mom, because her mom left her.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so they narrowly escape.
They use Miss Harrison's crush against her.
Yes, very, very smart, very intriguing. And then they approach this crossroads. So the crossroads was either to go back to London, or we actually didn't know what the other option was until she decided to move forward, and she decided to go to Basilworth. And in that,
can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
When they're escaping, did you find it interesting that as seemingly backwards as we can think that Miss Harrison was in terms of, as a character, I know she was considered, she was looked at as kind of a villain. I think her intentions were not villainous. I just think, unfortunately, it's a product of the era. But she was progressive in the fact that she had an automobile. Nobody else in this film had an automobile. So I thought that was a really interesting dynamic for her character. Did you pick up on that, or did you have any thoughts around that? I just feel like, you have this boarding school or this finishing school for women trying to oppress them and make them these perfect little Stepford wives. But you yourself, you yourself are this progressive woman who has a freaking automobile at a time of horseback carriages.
Who's single.
Right. So did you think that was, I thought that was so interesting. I had that written down. That was so interesting to me.
Unless there's some type of resentment that she wasn't able to get married and this was the only viable option. I honestly
that could be
much thought to it. So I don't know. That's a great observation though.
But to your point, that could be that she liked Mycroft. Maybe she felt like she had never had a man really want her or like her, and so she felt like, well,
he was not interested either. And knowing him, he probably would have ended up with a 16-year-old bride anyway.
I was gonna say that. Let's just be clear on the dynamics between those two in looks and probably stature. That relationship was probably never going to be viable in that time period. But again, I just found it interesting because, again, as a woman in that time, she was progressive in certain ways and yet very repressive in the way she treated other women. So I thought it was of note.
Was instilled.
Yeah, I thought it was of note. But anyway, let's move on to the fork in the road and the decision.
So at this moment, Enola realized that she solved the case. Who was behind the Lord's father's death? She also realized during her visit to the Lord's treehouse that the branch did not simply fall, it was cut off. So it was a setup.
Cut.
And she concluded that it was the uncle. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
And so with that revelation, she decided to go to the Lord's estate. So when they arrived, it's dark. No one's there. Except for the guy with the freaking Billard hat.
Tis a trap.
It is a trap. And Enola and the Lord fight for their lives. And
literally.
And one of the callbacks throughout the film was this corkscrew that Enola had not mastered, but it was needed. It worked marvelously. Actually, she tried to use it on him when they were back on Limehouse Street, and it didn't work, but it worked this time. And he ended up falling and hitting his head severely.
Yes.
In the moments before his death, she was pretty much asking, "Who are you working for?" And he just simply answered England.
Oof.
And you're left like, what? Like, that's
scary. Scary to me in that moment too, because you realize that there are truly people out there who have a mission that to them surpasses humanity.
Yes, to their country, right? Or
and
to some type of entity.
Girl, terrifying, because we have seen that very currently, have we not?
Yeah.
In certain instances, such as the potential kidnap and murder of the governor of Michigan.
Girl.
But continue on, Delora. Continue on, girl, because this is where it gets real good, y'all.
I don't have the strength with that.
It gets real good, y'all.
So the Biller Hat guy, which, by the way, I don't know if they ever named. I didn't catch.
No, he didn't have a name. I don't think. Nope.
So he dies, and both Enola and the Lord are distraught because they still have no idea who's responsible for all, murder and attempted murder. And then you hear tappings on the floor, the tappings of a cane coming towards them.
Oof.
And it's Grandma.
Oof.
Dun, dun, dun.
Devastating.
Grandma said the one thing that I wrote to myself in the beginning of the my second viewing: if you want things done, you got to do it yourself. Grandma proceeded to pick up that shotgun that the Biller had, and she shoots the Lord in the chest.
Her grandson. She shoots her own grandson in the chest with a shotgun and killed her own son for the sake of this vote. What I have written down, Delora, is crazy, straight Game of Thrones shit.
I put gangster. But this is peak Game of Thrones. This is like some mess that Tyrion, what's Tyrion's daddy's name? Lannister.
Yeah, y'all know who we're talking about. Game of Thrones fans, you know who we talking about. It was so epic because, again, the idea that you're willing to kill your own family, your children, your children's children for the sake of this country and for what you feel for whatever reason is right. You're willing to take out your own people? Kill your little grandson by shooting him in the chest?
Just because y'all have differences of opinions.
Yo, that was so epic for me. I was like, no.
I did not see that coming. And again, I guess I need to mention this. I love a good mystery. My husband and I actively try to figure out movies all the time. I didn't see that coming, and I loved every minute of it.
Yo, again, on our second viewing, then you realize the enormity of that first chat with the grandmother.
Absolutely.
Because at first you think it's bonding. You think like, the grandma is the one who, Enola can be cool with and who understands.
Yeah, so let her go.
She a homicidal psychopath.
Grandma is so ruthless. She was going to shoot Enola, but the gun jammed.
Bruh. Oh, my goodness.
Enola, respecting her elders, she just went to attend to the Lord because at this point, she's watching him die right before her eyes. But
thinks that man is dead.
The Lord is alive.
Yes, that boy is clever.
He is bulletproof. And it was so sweet. I love this interaction between them. Okay. So the first thing he says is, he's like, do you think I'm that much of an idiot or something along those lines? But this is the part, Ashley, right here. One of the things that I didn't mention, on their way to his estate, she essentially said, I'm not like other girls. I didn't learn to embroider. I learned to fight. This is how my mom taught me. And I'm essentially proud of how my mom raised me.
Absolutely.
And so the second thing he says to her is, You were made to fight.
Mm.
I literally put swoon. It was so cute because it's something about a guy recognizing a woman's power or respecting it. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, speaking specifically to men, that'll do it.
The definition of a man, in my opinion, is, again, to the point of, men, if you don't understand it out there, imagine if there is something or someone that is trying to suppress everything that you are. And imagine finding someone who loves you. And they can't
imagine it, Ashley, though.
I know. And you would think, especially Black men, I know you have a different experience, and a lot of minority men in general have a different experience. So you can understand powerlessness, but imagine that double powerlessness. And imagine the fight that you have to have, not only in society, but in your home, to validate who you are and find someone who can love you, flaws and all, because oftentimes women, we don't get the opportunity to be flawed.
Yes.
You think about the examples you see, women are expected to have this level of perfection with their ability to nurture, their ability to do everything.
Still manage to call us monsters and crazy in the process.
And seductresses who are, have ill intent and just want to manipulate, like
you try to.
We are multifaceted. I love any type of character that allows women to be multifaceted, because we are every bit of a human being as a man.
Absolutely. You preaching today, Ashley. Okay?
Girl, this Crown and Coke got me in my feelings.
All right. So Grandma was the one who did it. And I also thought it was kind of funny because the only other person who broke the fourth wall was Grandma, when she realized that her grandson was not dead and that it is a wrap for her. So the next scene is Sherlock busting through the great detective of Scotland Yard office, and he's like, "It's the grandmother. I've solved the case." And the detective's like, "Okay, well, how did you come to this conclusion?" And then he proceeds to do like his deduction, right? It wasn't the uncle who, Enola originally thought it was, because he was off at war. And the only one left at that point was Grandma. And then the second question the great detective of Scotland Yard said was, "How did your sister manage to do this before you?" And then Sherlock was like, what?
I have written down, Delora, who is more clever after all? Again, this is my point about that shift in dynamic between the two of them, where you're always assuming, oh, she's a little sister following along in her brother's footsteps. But you realize, like, she is a woman in and of herself. Absolutely. And has such capability. And at the end, you see him acknowledge that when he's leaving, and he laughs, right? He chuckles. He acknowledges the moment of, like, my sister is doing the damn thing out here.
Game, recognized game. Absolutely. I put in my notes, Sherlock bested by his little sister.
Yes.
Oh, and so now we run into Enola again, and she got a code in the newspaper from her mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
allegedly her mother.
So she goes to the place where she's supposed to meet her mom, but she goes in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
She realizes that it was her brothers trying to trap her to take her back to boarding school. But in that conversation between brothers, they were able to relieve Mycroft from his responsibilities.
Thank the Lord, Sherlock. Thank the Lord.
Finally. And now Enola is going to be Sherlock's ward. So that was tied up very well.
If ever she decides to make another appearance. Because again, she's at the point where she realizes, hey, I'll probably tip my hand to my brother talking about the newspaper, but I'm still going to check this situation out anyway. So again, she's so clever at this point where that's just a backup in my mind. It's like, okay, well, if she does ever go back, she won't have to deal with Mycroft. But listen, I don't need y'all. I don't need neither one of y'all. I'm out here living my best life.
At all. Because guess what? She got the reward money for finding the Lord.
Yes, ma'am.
She realizes she takes it reluctantly, but this allows her to get better digs, okay?
Yes.
And she sees the Lord right before he goes in.
To vote.
It's going in to vote because it was the big vote. And they have a moment because he's essentially saying, hey, my mom really appreciates you. And, you can stay with us. She's like, oh, no, I'm good. He was like, I want you to stay, too. And she was like, okay, I'm not going to be completely out of your hair, but.
Yeah. I wrote good for you, girl. When she refused to stay with him, I wrote good for you, girl.
Good
and the
for
fact
her,
that he was the one who was shedding the tears when they departed, I was like, listen, y'all better come through. Y'all better come through with this moment of female empowerment.
I need sequels.
Yes.
Okay, with him in it, unless there's going to be an even cuter boy. I'm always open to a love triangle.
Give that little man his little check, okay?
Oh, and she does a little exhale.
They both felt it in that moment. They definitely both felt it.
It was so sweet.
Did you mention one thing I was confused about before you move forward is that moment between Mycroft and Sherlock where, again, they're waiting to see if Enola's going to show up. I was so confused, and I guess it must have been sarcasm where Sherlock is saying, oh, you must be in such a good mood because of the vote. Because I'm like, hold on, Mycroft was against the vote. So why would he be celebrating? Like, it has to be sarcasm because Mycroft says in a quote earlier, he says, reform, God help us. If it's one thing this country doesn't need, it's more uneducated voters. England is going to pot.
Yes. And he also mentioned the Lord's father and said, oh, I knew him. He was extremely wealthy, but he was like a forward thinker.
He was liberal. Yeah, he was liberal. Yeah, so I was like, hold on, was that a moment of sarcasm? That confused me for just a second, but I'm assuming it was just sarcasm because he basically alludes to the fact that the vote does pass and passes by one
vote.
The Lord's vote mattered, people. Wow. And when I tell you that was so symbolic of the messaging of this movie that they're trying to say that every vote counts. Get out and exercise them rights.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and that's my fault. I talked about the Sherlock Ward thing before the vote, but thank you for bringing that up, Ashley. So yeah, that part didn't process very much to me, so I'm glad that you highlighted it. But yes, every vote did matter, and the Lord's vote mattered. So Enola goes back to her new digs, so much of an upgrade. And she goes into her room, and then Mama Sherlock found her.
Oh my goodness. After all the trickery and codes, the mom's just there at the house.
I'm like, so after all of that, Mama came to you. And so I feel like these last few minutes, even though it's not much, they were very powerful. Okay.
Yeah.
Her mom had pretty much explained to her that she was sorry, and she was sorry that she left, and she felt like it wouldn't be safe for Enola if she had stayed.
Yeah.
And she mentioned that she left for Enola and that she couldn't bear this world for Enola's future. And I thought that was powerful. And then I did write down these quotes because it was it touched me. She said, I had to fight. You have to make some noise if you want to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And Enola takes this very well. And she embraces her mother. And her mother acknowledged the work that Enola did. She was like, after all the years of work I've done, you've done more for our cause through your work than I've done in years. And it was just beautiful. It was beautiful. What were your thoughts at this point?
I mean, I'm struggling not to have tears right now. Like, Mama, I love you. Like, it was just it was so beautiful. Again, mother-daughter stories touch me particularly because I have such a strong relationship with my mom. And I just think in terms of women and progress and the sacrifices that we know that women have had to make. And I think being a double minority, you know, being a Black person too, it's just always so visceral for me because, again, the sacrifices of our elders and of, you know, people in history that have made such a difference in our lives are so palpable when you see them.
10,000.
Listen, when you see it in film and you see it, you know, really delivered to you in such a way, it's just so powerful for me. So not only the mother-daughter aspect of it, but again, the fact that this is history. I mean, this Reform Act really was, I looked it up, it was in 1884.
Yes.
And while it did not yet grant women the right to vote, it did give hope to the idea that
in the right direction.
Exactly, that progress was going to be made, and the fact that women had to sacrifice, you know, this was not you sometimes could think during the course of this movie, because you're not seeing Euphoria, that maybe this was easy on her. As a mother, I can only imagine, and you're a mother, this was a heartbreaking decision for her to have to choose between what she felt was in the best interest of her daughter's future and her daughter herself. Because at the end, you still don't have an idea of what Eudoria's plans are, how long she's going to have to be on the run, because obviously she's going to have to be in hiding because she must be being, you know, followed by police or whomever for her roles and the various things she's probably had to do.
Yeah.
But as a mother, she made this ultimate sacrifice for her children, for her child, to have a better future.
I want to say something. So
go right ahead.
I'm watching Lovecraft, and I know the show is horror and gruesome and horrible, but it's the showrunner, Black woman, Black cast, Black writers, gorgeous. I mean, it's so well written. Okay. This last episode, this woman, there was time travel, and an important piece, an important book had to be handed off to someone from the future to help the future or whatever. And the people were in imminent danger. The house was on fire. And the grandmother, who knew where the book was, said, tell my grandson that, who she doesn't know, because this is all future. This is great grandson, okay?
Yeah.
She's like, he is my faith turned into flesh.
You trying to make me cry today. You trying to make me cry today. I don't know if it's the alcohol or just my hormones or just the time, just 2020 in general. Like, y'all have to understand how relevant these things are that are going on right now.
Ashley,
if you're not watching Lovecraft, again, for me, I don't like horror, but again,
I don't blame
culture,
you.
Watch and support these things. These works are speaking to us. They are trying to push us forward.
Exactly. But that quote took me out, Ashley.
Girl, you trying to make me cry. I'm telling you over here, guys, I'm fighting. I don't get too emotional. I'm fighting against these tears over here. Stop it. My God.
So
that's obviously so powerful, because we know that historically these sacrifices that have been made for us to be able to live the lives that we do today.
Exactly.
Come on, y'all. We can't
take it lightly. We cannot take it for granted either. So I agree wholeheartedly that decision that had to be made, like you were mentioning, she had to make it. And honestly, because this is a happy story, Enola was able to learn those lessons, and she holds such a endearing part of her heart, her mother in her heart. And that is so beautiful to see, because even going back to when Sherlock visited her at the boarding school, you mentioned how he reminded her that mother said that she was exceptional, and how that being reminded of that was something that was able to spark a light into her even before we knew that she was going to make her great escape. And so her
mother was her strength throughout the entire film. In the moments that she needed her, even though her mother wasn't physically present, you see the insights that her mother gave her that are utilized to give her strength.
Mama Sherlock was a real one. I appreciated her wisdom greatly throughout this entire film.
And the fact that Helena got to play that part just
perfect.
Woo.
Perfect, because you know she's already unconventional, quote unquote, right?
Yes.
So there's the closing. We begin with Enola talking to the camera. We end with Enola talking to the camera, and it's so beautiful because essentially she had learned all the lessons that her mom had taught her. And what I wrote down was find your own path. And then one of the things that I also thought was very beautiful was she was able to identify herself. She's like, I am a detective. I am, she's like, I am. That's another thing. If you watch Lovecraft, the Hippolyta episode, I am, will knock your socks off, okay? But there is power in knowing who you are and having that Absolutely. I am statement. Absolutely. And it was so inspiring. And when she was like, my life is my own and the future is up to us. And I literally, that's where I got emotional. I was like, y'all are really trying to take me out right now. Because it's very uplifting, very full of hope.
Absolutely. Freedom and purpose is what I have written down for that end scene. Freedom to live the life that you choose for yourself and to Absolutely. Seek out your own path and your own purpose and your own happiness, whether you are a woman, whether you are a man, whether you are any of the various incarnations of human being that are happening right now. Live your best fucking life. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Absolutely. And there's such strength in being able to find your joy, to find your purpose in the midst of being oppressed, right? I'm reminded of the Marion Wilson speech. What's the name of it? But there's a quote, Nelson Mandela is known for quoting it during his presidency in South Africa, but essentially she talks about you shrinking does not give glory to God. Says that when you show your light, you give people permission to show theirs.
That was even in Coach Carter. You remember Coach Carter with Samuel L. Jackson? That was such a powerful moment in that movie. Yes. I think that's one of my brother's favorite quotes too about, And again, there can be that idea that as women that we are expected to shrink ourselves to make others feel better, but live in your purpose. That is what God created us
and it
to
definitely
do.
Doesn't serve you.
Exactly. No, that is God intended for all of us to find our purpose and to live in it on this earth. And I hope that is definitely the message that a lot of people get from this is that, again, whether it's voting, whether it's what's going on right now in politics, these things will pass and be resolved. But you in and of yourself, you need to figure out what's going to be best for you and you need to live in that.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts, Ashley?
I may have to change my grade. That's my final thought. After going back through this again, I may have to get this an A because, again, my B+ is, was again, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I just think going back through it, thinking about all the themes, thinking about the impact, thinking about what it means to me right now in this moment, it was a very powerful film in certain ways. So, I may have to upgrade it and give it an A. I think it's worth looking at. I think it was worth the ride. I hope they do more.
Yes.
And, it was just, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And good for you, Millie Bobby Brown. You 16-year-old. I love all these young females who are out here living their best lives, from Millie to
Marseille
our
Martin.
girl, Marseille Martin to Yara Shahidi. I mean, all of y'all at such young, girl, I love me some Zendaya, at such young ages, because you think about, again, we're both in our 30s now. You think about where you were in your life at some of these ages, and that strength of knowing who you are and what your purpose is, that's rare.
Powerful.
Let's be honest, that is so rare. So good for y'all. Do y'all thing out here.
And being able to work in it, because you may know who you are, but
have those barricades
or resources or support system to be
again. Thank you to all the women who have paved the way for these young ladies now to come in here and be forces.
Absolutely. Bravo.
Beautiful.
All right. So, Ashley,
that was fantastic. That was a fantastic recap. I thoroughly enjoyed that, girl.
Thank you. Me too. Yay.
Hope you guys enjoyed it listening.
Absolutely. All right. So it's time for hidden gems. Ashley.
Yep.
You can
Let me go first. Okay. So my hidden gems for this week are probably a little more unconventional than what I've given the first two. And mine really just come from my week and what I've experienced. So that's really what I primarily like to share. And for this week, I think I've been really heavy on the music and just really missing certain things like concerts and the ability to experience music live. So I stumbled upon, I've been a fan of NPR's Tiny Desk concerts for some years now. I hope, that it continues to be discovered by many people, because I think it's such a beautiful platform to have an intimate experience with some of your favorite either artists you already know or have yet to discover. And so Summer Walker, for some reason, as awkward as hers was because of her social anxiety, the effortlessness of her vocals on her Tiny Desk concert just still moved me. Like, I just watched that one again. But I've had many. I mean, I love her. Like, her is one of my favorite artists currently.
I was about to say hers up there, my top one, not my top three.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've watched many of them. I watched Daniel Caesar. Like, I've watched a lot of them. I even watched T-Pain, which was one of the first ones I think I ever discovered. Yeah. And by the way, in his Tiny Desk concert, I thought his vocals were on point. I was like, okay, T-Pain. Yeah, put the auto-tune aside, okay? But they've been doing the home edition. So one of my favorite artists, probably, I love Beyonce to death, but probably my favorite artist right now is Jhené Aiko.
I knew you were going to say that.
It's just a kindred spirit thing with Jhené.
You don't think all of her songs sound the same?
So I've heard this argument, and the thing that I'll say about that is maybe it's because I wasn't a big fan at the beginning of her career. I'm just now like Chilombo, her latest album is really the first album that I listen to on repeat all the time. Gotcha. So I get it in terms of her production. Sometimes it can sound the same, but I still acknowledge the growth. Like, I can still see it.
Healing sounds.
Yeah, and right now she's into doing the different things with the bowls, because she said, she's trying to help heal people through music. And I don't know, I mess with Jhené heavy. I mess with Jhené heavy. So I watched her home edition, and while she didn't sing any of my favorites, I still found it to be such a relaxing experience that I've probably watched it 3 or 4 times at this point. So I just encourage everybody to check out the home edition. I also watched Billie Eilish, which, if y'all don't know, Billie Eilish has one of my favorite voices. Like, her vocal ability is understated, but beautiful.
I appreciate it greatly, and she gives me the teen angst that I need, even though I'm not there anymore.
Yes, and her relationship with her brother is also just a beautiful thing to watch, right? That closeness that they seem like they have. Yeah. So those are 2 that I watched, and again, I went back and watched a few old favorites like Summer Walker, and I just love Tiny Desk so much. I appreciate y'all. I also watched Paramore, because I don't know how many Black people fuck with Paramore, but listen,
those are my people, right?
I'll just say, like, the lead singer, Haley, like, her voice is on another level for me in terms of rock groups. And as I said last episode, I love a great vocalist. I love somebody who has a lot of power. So I went down this whole Paramore rabbit hole.
Paramore is my band, right?
I did not know that. And what's funny is there's a whole collective of Black people who, I guess there was an article written about how much Black people love Paramore.
Are you one of those people? Haley has her own solo album, by the way, which I saw amazing.
That. I went down a couple of hours worth of rabbit hole.
I have 3 tracks you have to listen to. That'll be my hidden gems next week. I'll be more prepared.
Okay, send that out to the universe, because I mess with Haley heavy. So that was my hidden gem number 1. Was
I quote Paramore all the time. Like,
that's
my
hilarious.
Is I'm a optimist. I'm a pessimist for an optimist, or something like that. And I love it.
Yeah,
you can ask David, my husband. He can definitely contest to my love of Paramore, especially their first album, Riot, everything. Okay. And then, of course, the other hit, You Are the Only Exception. That's right.
Oh yes, goodness, yeah. I've liked so many of their songs over the years, but again, Haley in particular is probably the
But you're
reason
coming
why
from
I
a
messed
person
with that
who is
band.
a major Maroon 5 fan. First album, Maroon 5.
Oh, you're a major Maroon 5 fan?
Absolutely. That was the first CD
Gotcha.
I've ever owned. So yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, see, a vocal ability for me transcends genre. So while I am a heavy R&B consumer, if somebody
Yeah.
has a great voice, whether they're in country, whether they're in rock, anything,
Yes.
like I love it. I love them and I love that particular
I
song.
hear
So
you.
Haley was one of those for me with Paramore. So
Absolutely.
that was my first hidden gem was Tiny Desk Home Edition. Check those out, YouTube it up. The second one is meditation apps, a couple of meditation apps. So I don't
Nice.
know who else out there in 2020 in particular
Girl,
has
everybody.
felt like they needed to really find
Everybody.
their mental peace and really deal with
Me
their
earlier
mental
today.
health. Yeah. And it evolves every day, right? You never know where you're at. So I had a great conversation recently with a coworker, and I've had these conversations over the years and I've talked about it, but I really made the intention this week to set up a couple of meditation apps. One of them is Headspace, which is you can do a free trial, but you have to eventually pay. So I'm always looking for a free app out there. I don't know about y'all. So I found an additional one called Insight Timer. And for a couple of nights now, I've done these quick 5-minute guided meditations because I've tried to do meditation before and my mind is just always all over the place. So I've struggled with that.
Absolutely.
But because it's a guided meditation and you have kind of somebody who is talking you through it, I found it very peaceful. And I found it, I've done it 2 times, it's 5 minutes. They have other ones, they have multiple ones you can do. But I just felt like if anybody out there like me, sometimes I struggle with trying to really focus and also manage stress and anxiety. I found it to be very beneficial and helpful. So if anybody else out there is feeling that way and you want to check something out, check out the meditation apps out there and let me know what you think. So those are my hidden gems for this week, Delora.
Very nice. Thank you, Ashley.
Of course.
So I have 2 hidden gems this week. My first is The Haunting of Bely Manor.
Ooh, scary.
It is another Netflix original, very spooky mystery show. It's a part of an anthology. The first being The Haunting of Hill House. So my husband and I started watching it earlier this week. There are 9 episodes. We are on episode 5. So hopefully we have time to watch it tonight because it's getting real good, but there's haunting. And typically when it comes to horror, I don't like possessions or ghosts or anything like that. This one, I only watch it with someone with the lights on behind a blanket, but it's a good story,
Hilarious.
I guess we should just call my hidden gems this week very Halloween themed since we're in October. The second one is a Hulu original show called Light as a Feather. As you know, that statement from the famous, I think it's a cult classic, the Craft, the movies from the 90s. They played this game. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. And so apparently someone took that, and there's a whole novel about it, but this show is based off this novel, and they essentially play the game, but you have to, before you do that chant, you have to predict the person who's laying down their death and then make the chant, and then they float. And turns out it's a curse, and the death is exactly how that person predicts it. And so it gives me Final Destination for Gen Z.
Final Destination used to scare the crap out of me too. I couldn't even sit in the room for those movies.
So essentially, death is coming for all these kids who play this game, but some make it, some don't, and it's like a race against the clock. Another mystery, spooky type of show. Altogether, there's 2 seasons. The first season is like 10 episodes. The second season is like, I would think 16. It's a 25-minute show, quick watch, entertaining, you know, teen drama. So there's a lot of bad decisions, which sometimes I have zero patience for.
Yeah, same.
I enjoyed it. I watched it till the end. So those are my gems this week.
Nice. All right. Well, we won't hold you guys any longer. We know this has been a little bit long of an episode.
Just a little bit.
But you know, we want to give you your money's worth, even though we know this is free. Yet again, you can connect with us. We have our IG and our Twitter up at Recapping Podcast. Feel free to connect. We're gonna start engaging and getting some stuff posted. Thank you guys as always for spending some time with us. We so appreciate any and all support. You. We will see you guys next week for yet another recap. Be blessed.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.